Okay, good evening. Madam Clerk, is a quorum present? Quorum being present, the special town meeting will come to order. To either of the constables of the town of Raynham and the county of Bristol, greetings. It is in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs to meet at the Raynham Middle School in said Raynham on Monday the 17th of May 2021 at 6 o'clock in the evening, and then and there to act on the following articles, and there are 19. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at the 6 places directed by vote of the town in said town 14 days before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of meeting as aforesaid, given under our hands this 13th day of April in the year of our Lord 2021, and that is signed by Patricia A. Riley, Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Joseph R. Pacheco, Vice Chair, Richard G. Chavo, Clerk, and a attestation from the constable pursuant to the within warrant. I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Raynham by posting up attested copies of the same at 6 places directed by vote of the town 14 days before the date of the meeting as within directed. Good evening, folks. My name is John Donahue. I'm your town moderator. I'll be leading us through the two meetings tonight. I'm joined up front here by a number of town officials. To your left, Town Clerk Marcia Sylvia. The gentleman behind me is the vote guru, so his name is Peter, and you'll hear from him a little later if necessary. Hopefully not, though. To your right is Chair of the Board of Selectmen, Joe Pacheco, Richard Chavo, Patricia Riley, the rest of the Select Board. Have we officially changed the name yet? We haven't? Okay. Town Council Ted Pietnick, Chair of the FinCom Gil Aligi, and our Town Administrator over in the corner there, Graham Waters, and a whole host of other town officials in the first 2 rows. I see a number of our FinCom, Sewer Commission, our Sewer Superintendent. I'm sure I'm missing somebody. And there are a number of department heads and other town officials in the room adjacent who will come forward if need be. I would ask for unanimous consent that non-resident department heads, town officials, and their designees be allowed to address the town meeting. Can I get a motion there? So moved and seconded. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. The ayes have it. Non-residents are hereby allowed to speak at the town meeting. As we are in 2 different locations, I have an assistant town moderator tonight, and I would ask for a motion. So, it's moved and seconded that Joseph Bickle be appointed assistant moderator for the evening. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. We have an assistant moderator. Mr. Bickle, if you would come forward to the gymnasium. You can come right up here. Yeah, we'll do it twice. We'll do it at the special. We'll do it again at the annual.
Joe, will you raise your right hand? Do you swear to perform the duties of Assistant Town Moderator for the Town of Raynham to the best of your ability, so help you God? You're duly sworn in.
Thank you. Welcome. Thank you, Madam Clerk. And thank you, Joe, for doing this. So we got a good crowd tonight. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on housekeeping. We've been doing this for over a year now, but I still probably should remind us all to keep your masks on. Remain seated throughout the meeting if possible. If you do need to get up and move, try to maintain social distancing measures. There is a stationary mic at center court. If you have any questions or comments, or if you wish to speak, please come forward to the center mic. And in the alternative room in the cafeteria, there's a mic towards the right-hand side, about 2/3 of the way down towards the front. To really just get my attention so that we can pause the meeting, give you time to get up to the microphone. And again, this is obviously this is open legislature where we're here for a debate, we're here to vote, we're here to discuss the issues, the articles, And we certainly, although we want to try to move through our business tonight and get it all done in one night, not at the expense of folks not getting to voice their opinion. So please don't be shy. The microphone is there for a reason. The special town meeting has 19 articles, primarily capital, mostly financial, and all of them a simple majority vote. All I would ask is when you do get up and speak that you keep your comments germane to the article on the floor. We need to keep all discussion within the four corners of the article. Town meeting is not the time to get up to make speeches about the way you feel town is being run, unless, of course, it's specific to the article that is before town meeting, in which case we would certainly encourage you to do so. And, of course, please refrain from addressing any of the other voters or folks in the room directly. Everything goes through the chair. And, of course, I don't have to say this, but I always do, because Raynham is such a special place when it comes to town meeting. There is an expectation that we all maintain the decorum and the professionalism that Raynham is known for. You ready for us? You ready for our test question? So you were, on the way in, you were given a clicker, right? Everybody got one? Anybody not have one? That's probably an easier way to go about this, right? So this is something new. The way we'll use this is we're going to primarily use voice vote like we always do. If after a voice vote I doubt the vote, if I can't determine which side prevails, then I will go to the electronic vote. I also reserve the right to, during debate, if it appears that, and this is probably more with regards to the annual town meeting a little later, but during debate, if it's apparent that there is not a consensus, then we may just skip the voice vote and go right to the electronic vote. So what we're going to do now is we're going to test these little suckers out. So if you can all get your clicker in your hand, it's very simple. You just need to click 1 for yes or 2 for no. And when it comes time to vote, I will call to Peter behind me, open the vote. He will open the vote, and these will become live. We'll leave it open for, 20 or 30 seconds. I'll ask if anybody hasn't had a chance to vote, and if everybody has voted, then we'll close the vote, and you will see on the screen the votes in more or less in real time. You won't see the votes, but you'll see the tally in real time. So what we're going to do now is we're going to try a test vote. If Sean could put up our test question. It's a yes or no vote. Will the Route 44 overpass project be completed by 2030? Go ahead and vote. Open the window. Window's open. Now look at your little digital pad. If it says, it should correspond with the number that you voted, and it should say OK. Now until the window closes, you can vote as many times as you want. You won't get more than one vote, but you can change your vote. All right? So I voted, well, it doesn't matter how I voted, but if I want to change my vote, I would just hit the other button. Has everybody had a chance to vote? I don't see anybody that hasn't, so Peter, close the vote. And let's get a look at the results. I can't see them, but... Oh, they're right in front of me. So 91 people voted. 55 people believe that the overpass will be done by 2030, the optimists in the room. 36 think that that's a long shot. Okay, so that's it. Any questions on electronic voting? We'll use them probably a little bit later tonight, I would think. Any questions before we start the special town meeting? Article 1, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $2,972 from the Transportation Infrastructure Fund, a receipt reserved for appropriation account for expenses associated with the impact of transportation network services on municipal roads, bridges, and other transportation infrastructure, including any incidental or related costs, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 1. Discussion on Article 1. Seeing none. All in favor of Article 1, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 1 passes. Article 2, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $282,509 from the Sewer Enterprise Retained Earnings Account for the expected payment to be due to the City of Taunton for Raynham's capital share of Taunton's wastewater treatment plant and main pumping station rehab projects. or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 2. Discussion on Article 2. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 2, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 2 passes. Article 3, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $100,000 from the sewer enterprise retained earnings account into the sewer maintenance facility debt account or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 3. Discussion on Article 3. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 3, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 3 passes. Article 4, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $75,000 to the general stabilization account or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 4. Discussion on Article 4. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 4, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 4 passes. Article 5, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 to the OPEB, Other Post-Employment Benefits Trust Fund, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 5. Discussion on Article 5. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 5, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 5 passes. Article 6, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $100,000 for the purpose of providing professional services, stormwater management expenses, land acquisition, materials, and construction obligations to make improvements to the town infrastructure or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 6. Discussion on Article 6. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 6, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 6 passes. Article 7, to see if the town will vote to transfer from the overlay surplus account the sum of $150,000 for the purpose of the design and construction and replacement of the King Pond Dam Bridge and other related roadway and sidewalk improvements, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 7. Discussion on Article 7. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 7, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 7 passes. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to transfer from the overlay surplus account the sum of $35,000 for the purpose of replacing the fencing at Griffith's soccer field, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 8. Discussion on Article 8. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 8, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 8 passes. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to, pursuant to General Laws, Chapter 40, Section 5B, to create a special purpose stabilization fund to be called the Fire Engine Pumper Stabilization Fund for the purpose of funding the replacement of a 1996 E1 pumper or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 9. Discussion on Article 9. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 9, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 9 passes. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $250,000 into the Fire Engine Pumper Stabilization Fund or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 10. Discussion on Article 10. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 10, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 10 passes. Article 11, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $25,000 for the purpose of upgrading the fire department's firehouse software program or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 11. Discussion on Article 11. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 11, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 11 passes. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to transfer from the fire alarm account the sum of $12,000 for the purpose of securing non-authorized areas of the fire station or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 12. Discussion on Article 12. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 12, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 12 passes. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $130,000 for the purchase of two 2021 Ford all-wheel drive or similar patrol vehicles with all equipment and labor or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 13. Discussion on Article 13. Seeing none, all in favor of Article 13, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 13 passes. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $94,000 for the purpose of upgrading the police department's network servers, computers, cameras, and camera storage systems, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 14. Discussion on Article 14. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 14, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 14 passes. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $1,125,512 into the Public Safety Building Stabilization Fund or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 15. Discussion on Article 15. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 15, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 15 passes. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $11,000 for the purpose of electronic file scanning of the town hall's building, planning room documents, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 16. Discussion on Article 16. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 16, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 16 passes. Article 17, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $32,000 for the purchase of one new 2021 Ford Ranger or similar pickup truck for the use of the town custodian and the sealer of weights and measures, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 17. Discussion on Article 17. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 17, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 17 passes. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to transfer from the overlay surplus account the sum of $15,000 for the purpose of Alice upgrades at Town Hall, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 18. Discussion on Article 18. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 18, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 18 passes. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $358,133 for the purpose of repair and renovation projects at the Raynham Middle School and BR Regional High School. And it is broken down in the article. I don't think you folks need me to read it or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 19. Discussion on Article 19. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 19, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 19 passes. Motion has been made and seconded to dissolve the special town meeting. Discussion on the motion to dissolve special town meeting. Seeing none, all those in favor of dissolving the special town meeting, please say aye. Opposed, no. Special town meeting is dissolved. That closes activity on the special town meeting for the evening, folks. We will start the annual town meeting at 7 p.m. sharp. I would start it sooner, but I can't because that is the posted time. So relax for half an hour. Please try to maintain social distancing. We'll get these two fans turned back on. We'll get a little air moving in here. For those folks that are curious, next door, I am told, is a little bit cooler and a little bit more comfortable. And you can see and hear everything that we do up here. So that's an option if it gets uncomfortable in here in a little while. We'll see you again at 7 o'clock. Madam Clerk, is a quorum present? Quorum being present, the annual town meeting will come to order. To all residents of Raynham, the attached warrant has been, You guys don't want to hear that. To either of the constables of the town of Raynham in the county of Bristol, greeting in the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. You're hereby directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of said town qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs to meet at the Raynham Middle School in said Raynham on Monday the 17th of May, 2021 at 7 o'clock in the evening. Then in there act on the following articles. And there are 35. And you are directed to serve this warrant by posting up attested copies thereof at the 6 places directed by vote of the town in said town 7 days before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of meeting as aforesaid, given under our hands this 30th day of March in the year of our Lord 2021. And that's signed by Patricia A. Riley, Chairman, Joseph R. Pacheco, Vice Chair, Richard G. Chavo, Clerk, the Selectmen of Raynham, and attestation pursuant to the within warrant. I have notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Raynham by posting up attested copies of the same at 6 places directed by vote of the town 7 days before the date of the meeting, as within directed. I'd like to ask everybody to please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. The flag is against the rear wall. I pledge allegiance to the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. Welcome to the annual town meeting, folks. This will be a little repetitive for those of you that attended the special at 6 p.m. My name is John Donahue. I'm the town moderator. Joining me up front here to your left is our town clerk, Marcia Sylvia. To your right, our Board of Selectmen, Chairman Joe Pacheco, Richard Chavo, Patricia Riley, and down the far end on the right, Chairman of the Capital Planning Committee, Brendan Loftus. Along the back wall, our Town Council, Ted Pietnick, FinCom Chair, Gil Aligi, and Town Administrator, Graham Waters. And within the first couple of rows here are a number of our elected town officials and town department heads, and there are also department heads and some town officials in the cafeteria behind us. I would ask for unanimous consent that non-resident department heads, town officials, and or their designees be allowed to address the town meeting. Has been moved and seconded. Discussion on that? Seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Thank you for that vote. Non-residents are approved to address town meeting. As we do have a spillover room, we do need a moderator in the room behind me, so I would nominate Joseph Bickle, if I could get that motion. Motion has been made and seconded to nominate Joseph Bickle to be Assistant Town Moderator for tonight's annual town meeting. Discussion on that? Seeing none, all in favor? All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Joe Bickle, please come forward. You are our Assistant Town Moderator.
You raise your right hand. Do you swear to perform the duties of Assistant Town Moderator for the town of Raynham to the best of your ability, so help you God? You're duly sworn in.
Thank you, Joe, and thanks for stepping up to do this, and thank you, Marcia. We're going to start tonight's proceedings with, as we do at every annual town meeting, with our Citizen of the Year award. I would ask, you already get the plaque, Joe? I would ask Chairman Pacheco to come forward and present. Are we doing one or two? We actually have two. We have a carryover from last summer when we were trying to move things along due to COVID. So we will present last year's and this year's.
Good evening. Thank you, Mr. Moderator. The first up will be the 2020 Albert F. Porter Citizen of the Year Award, and that will be presented to the volunteers of the Raynham Food Basket. Is there anybody in the audience representing the food basket? Mr. Serep? The Board of Selectmen every year has the honor and recognition of former Selectman Albert Porter to designate an individual or a group of individuals to receive the award who, in our estimation, has gone above and beyond in service to the town of Raynham, and last year's recipient, again, were the volunteers of the Raynham Food Basket. Congratulations. Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to thank the town for this award, and I'd just like to say that the food pantry has never closed from day one when COVID struck. We have been running that every single week that we were supposed to run it, the days we were supposed to run it. The only thing we changed was the manner of giving out the food to the clients. We turned it into a no-contact food delivery into the trunks of their car rather than them coming to the food pantry and making contact with them. So we never stopped doing it, and that's can't be said for a lot of food banks. If we check with the Boston Food Pantry, Bank in Boston, where we pick up the food in New Bedford, they said they lost something like 33 food banks that did not respond after COVID started. So we're very lucky, and thank you very much.
I also have the distinct honor of presenting the 2021 Albert F. Porter Citizen of the Year Award, and this year's recipient on behalf of the board is Mr. Frank Campbell. Mr. Campbell is somebody who you might know by name, you might not necessarily know if you see him at the grocery store, and I personally believe that's intentional. The way Mr. Campbell carries himself is one of class and dignity and commitment and devotion. Unfortunately, Mr. Campbell couldn't join us tonight, but I do want to take a moment to talk a little bit about the contributions Mr. Campbell has made to the town of Raynham over the past 40 years, and then we'll introduce his two daughters, Kathy and Carrie Ann, to come up and accept on his behalf and say a few words. But I've known Mr. Campbell for probably about 20 years now, and over those 20 years, I've had the fortune of seeing all of the contributions that he has made to the town. Going back, again, over about 40 years, whether it be his volunteerism and charitable donations to Raynham Youth Baseball and Softball, including helping to physically construct the dugouts, to his service for about 20 years on the Standing Permanent Building Committee, to his service in other areas of town as well. Mr. Campbell is somebody who, again, I have a great deal of respect for, the board has a great deal of respect for, and I can't think of anybody else who would be more fitting than to deserve this award tonight. So Kathy Ann and Kerry.
I think this is the point where I'm supposed to say that Frank wishes he could be here tonight. But if you know anything about my dad, as Joe mentioned, he's very unassuming, and he's actually pretty relieved that he couldn't be here tonight. But he's very appreciative. In his own words, he does things because he likes to help people and not for the credit. But he's very honored and very appreciative, and my sister and I could not be prouder to have him as our dad. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Joe, for that, and congratulations to the Campbell family and Frank in particular. Very well deserved. So here we go, folks, annual town meeting. This is where we all gather as a legislature to do the business of the town, and we've got 35 articles to work our way through tonight, some financial, some housekeeping, some citizens' petitions later in the warrant that are sure to result in some debate, I'm sure. We're going to get through this tonight. I am determined to get through this tonight. I don't think anybody in this room wants to come back for a second night, so that will be my goal. Pretty much standard rules here tonight, folks. Of course, we encourage any and everybody to get up and ask questions of your town officials with regards to specific articles, or of the citizens petitioners with regards to their articles. Of course, we appreciate a lively debate, whether you're for or against an article. This is a place where you can come and give us all your opinion on why an article should pass or why it should not pass, and you should know that you can do that in a manner of respect. If you do choose to speak tonight, all I would ask is that you get up, approach the microphone, get my attention if you're coming from a little bit of a distance away so I don't miss you. State your name and address for the record for our town clerk. She does keep notes, and then she's the keeper of the record of town meetings, so she needs to know who gets up, who speaks. Debate must be limited to exactly what the article is taking up on the floor tonight. So what we ask is that you stay within I like to say, the four corners of the article, not stray too far from why we're here and what we're about to go to vote on. Refrain from addressing any of your town meeting attendees and your neighbors to your left or to your right. Please offer all comments through the chair. And of course, I say this every year, and it's the year I don't say it that something will happen, but I feel I have to say Raynham's always really good about maintaining decorum and professionalism and neighborliness at our town meeting. And I would just encourage everybody to continue doing what makes Raynham great and what makes town meeting here in Raynham such a special place to be. So I hate to do this to the folks that were here for the special town meeting, but I have to do it again. So when you walked in, folks, you were handed a small white clicker, if you could get that in your hand right now. We will continue to use voice voting as the primary method of voting here at the annual town meeting. But if, in my opinion, if a voice vote is inconclusive, we will utilize our new electronic system. So I mentioned at registration, you're all given a handheld clicker with 3 buttons on it, 1, 2, and 3. To vote yes on any article, you just push the green button, number 1. To vote no, you push the red button, number 2. And the yellow button, number 3, is disabled this evening. So if you don't want to vote, don't push any buttons. Once you push a button, you can't unvote. You can change your vote. So if I press 1 and I say, oh, geez, I meant to press 2, as long as the vote is open, go ahead and press 2. You will not be voting more than once, and the system will record your last vote. So what will happen is I'll call for the vote to open. Peter behind me will open the vote. You'll see the screen pop up, and all you'll do is you'll press, there it is, that's what it will look like. You'll press your vote, and when you press your vote on that little digital screen, your number will appear. So if I vote 1, 1 will appear. If I vote 2, 2 will appear, and then an OK will flash. Once you see OK, your vote's been recorded. Again, as long as the vote's open, change it as many times as you want. Once Peter closes the vote, your handset will stop recording votes. We will show this during the vote. The gray means you have not voted, and the blue means that you have voted. Are people already voting? People are already voting. I like the anticipation. This is excellent. So I don't know when we're going to use this tonight. It's possible that I may, depending upon how debate goes, if I sense that there will be a split vote, or if it's contentious, I might just go straight to the electronic voting pad. If anybody feels strongly about using the electronic voting pad, you should make that known. So what we'll do now is we'll take a test vote, and we'll see how this thing works. So we used sort of a funny one in the first special town meeting. We'll use a serious one in this one. So vote is open. Will the Patriots make the playoffs? Go ahead and record your vote. You should see your number appear, then you should see a small OK. We'll keep that in the open for another 10 seconds. Still some folks that haven't voted. Maybe they're just not quite sure about our Patriots this year. So we're going to close it down in 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Peter, close it down. Peter closes the vote. And there you go. 107 of you voted. 67 think the Patriots will make the playoffs. 40 of you can exit at the side right here. No, I'm just kidding. 40 of you don't believe that they're going to make the playoffs. And judging on the number of the count we got on the way in, a few of you chose not to vote, which is absolutely fine. So that's electronic voting in a nutshell. We'll see if we need to use it. I would expect that we may need to use it once or twice. Any questions on electronic voting? My most serious request is at the end of the evening that you don't tuck this into your shirt pocket, your purse, or your back pocket of your jeans and walk out the door. There'll be a box by both doors. I would ask that you drop it in the box on the way out, or if you think you're going to forget between your chair and the door, just leave it on your chair. We'll come around and pick them up. Now, I know this is new for us. I would ask for your indulgence and patience as we adopt this new process. I know change can be challenging at times. We did a lot of research on electronic voting. Town Clerk Sylvia and I did. We've been kicking this around for over a year. But with COVID being what it is and with federal funds being available for the system, we decided to kind of take that leap of faith, and here we are. It is the safest way to determine any non-unanimous vote, any non-voice vote. It offers you an opportunity to vote your conscience without any concerns or external pressures. And while nothing is quicker than a voice vote, which is why I'll continue to use it, electronic voting is clearly a close second, much closer than me coming out with my clicker, and certainly much closer than a paper secret ballot. It also gives you, our voters, complete confidence in the vote while providing efficiency. And there is a record kept. So Peter, behind me, his system, which we will run next year because he's only here for the first time, Peter will show me later how to capture the vote, maintain the vote, and that way it would sustain any challenges if there were any. So that's it for the housekeeping, with one exception. I do want to give a few thank yous. I typically do these at the end, but half of you are to the parking lot by the time I'm done. And I think it's so important this year to notice a few people, recognize a few people, and thank them, because this town meeting and last summer's town meeting has been like none I don't think any of us have ever seen. I mean, just look at where we are, how we're set up, the technology we now have to use. This doesn't happen in a vacuum. First, I would like to thank our Board of Selectmen for their support with the town meeting process. Of course, our town clerk and her staff. These things don't go smoothly unless they are doing their jobs, and they do it right every single time. Ed Buckley and his Raynham Highway crew, they were in here earlier this afternoon setting this all up. Of course, Raynham Fire and Raynham Police for keeping us all safe. Our school district for their cooperation in using the space. Health Agent Tanis, who has helped immeasurably with this entire process, keeping me on track and making sure that we keep you folks all safe. And of course, our town administrator, Graham Waters, for his steady hand behind the scenes. I pretty much download everything to him, and believe me, over the last couple of weeks, we've spoken probably more than he cares to, because a lot has gone on in the last couple of weeks. So I think that's it. That's it for the housekeeping. We're going to jump right into the warrant. As I mentioned, there are 35 articles, and I am going to try to move quickly through most of the housekeeping articles, the things that we're accustomed to seeing every single year. But I will pause for comments and questions. I am going to use the consent agenda, which is really just a way of rolling up articles into one main vote. And we'll use the consent agenda for Articles 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So we're going to get right into that right now. If everybody would take a look at their booklet and review Article 1, which is a nomination of all town officers. Article number 2, to accept the report of all town officers, which I'm holding up, and you can get at Town Hall. I believe they came in this week. We're not going to do Article 3. Article 4 authorizes the Board of Selectmen to sign contracts on behalf of the town. Article 5 authorizes the board to accept and enter into contracts for the expenditure of any funds from the Commonwealth or the county for construction. Article 6 is our yearly donation or contribution to the American Legion for quarters, $400. And Article 7 authorizes the town treasurer collector, with the approval of the selectmen, to borrow money from time to time in anticipation of revenue. So those 6 articles, 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7, are what we refer to as housekeeping. They don't change. They're there every single year. I'm going to pause right now. Does anybody have any questions on Articles 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, or 7? Seeing none. Motion has been made and seconded to accept the consent agenda, Articles 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7. Any questions on the motion to accept Articles 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7? Seeing none, all those in favor of accepting Articles 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Articles 1, 2, 4, 5, 6, and 7 pass. Article 3 is the budget, to raise such sums of money as may be necessary to defray town charges and make appropriations for same or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded on Article 3 to take no action. Questions on the motion to take no action on Article 3? Mr. Waters.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. After review of the budget document, there were errors noted in the formulas of the Excel spreadsheet, which impact the overall balance. Additionally, it was noted that the budget in the town meeting book was unintentionally cut off. In order to give residents the opportunity to fully review the budget, the finance team will correct these formulas and republish a full budget document for consideration at a special town meeting before the end of the fiscal year.
Thank you. Thank you. Everybody understand what just happened on Article 3? If there's anybody out there that needs further explanation, please approach the microphone. Essentially, what's happening is they are delaying passage of the budget until a special town meeting can be established and scheduled sometime before the end of the fiscal year, June 30th. On the motion to take no action on Article 3, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. No action is taken on Article 3. Article 8, to see if the town will vote to authorize an offset receipts account under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, Section 53E, to fund the operation of the before and after school daycare run by Park and Rec, and to authorize expenditures of $469,921 as described in the article for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021 as follows. The off-seat receipts account is to be credited with all fees and charges received during FY22 from persons using these services or taking any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 8. Discussion on Article 8. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 8, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 8 passes. Article 9, to see if the town will vote to transfer from receipts reserved for appropriation account number 220-650, Board and Colony, the amount of $27,710 to the general fund to offset the associated Board and Colony expenditures of the general operating budget, any unused funds at the end of fiscal year 2022 to be returned to the Board and Colony receipts reserved for appropriation account or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 9. Discussion on Article 9. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 9, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 9 passes. I'm going to pause here for a second. I did forget to make one quick announcement. To our folks in the cafeteria, our alternative room, you will see a microphone right in front of our assistant town administrator, town moderator. If you have just a simple question, that would be the place to go. If you folks think that you're going to get up and enter into the debate by speaking at length, I would encourage you to come on over to the gymnasium. Just let the assistant town moderator know that you're coming over, and he'll get my attention, and we will hold on, and you can come into this room and use the platform at the front of the gymnasium. Article 10, to see if the town will vote to appropriate the sum of $2,931,003 to be raised from sewer enterprise revenues for the operation and maintenance of the sewer department as categorized below, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 10. Discussion on Article 10. I would note for those here that this was not submitted by Park and Rec. This was clearly submitted by the Sewer Commission. Town Council and I, there's a number of these tonight, folks. Town Council and I discussed this earlier, and neither one of us feels this is germane to the article, so it does not affect the legitimacy of the articles. Discussion on Article 10. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 10, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 10 passes. Article 11. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $60,000 for the sewer betterment fund or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 11. Discussion on Article 11. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 11, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 11 passes. Article 12, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $534,000 from the Betterment Reserve Fund for sewer construction debt or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 12. Discussion on Article 12. But I will note that this was submitted also by the Sewer Commission. Discussion on Article 12. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 12, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 12 passes. Article 13, to see if the town will vote to transfer the sum of $47,200 for the sewer maintenance facility debt account from the sewer maintenance facility debt account for the annual payment on the maintenance facility debt or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 13. Discussion on Article 13. I would note this was also submitted by the Sewer Commission. I believe that is the last error that needs to be corrected. No, maybe not. Further discussion on Article 13. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 13, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 13 passes. Article 14, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $13,858 to provide matching funds for a federal grant which will enable the fire department to upgrade out-of-date breathing apparatus or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 14. Discussion on Article 14. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 14, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 14 passes. Article 15, to see if the town will vote to transfer $433,001 as detailed below from the ambulance receipts account to operate the ambulance service through the of fiscal year 22. Any unused funds at the end of fiscal year 22 to be returned to the ambulance receipts account or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 15. Discussion on Article 15.
Mr. Moderator, I'd motion to amend the Article 15, inserting the words, quote, first half, end quote, after the words, quote, service through the, end quote, and before the words, quote, of fiscal year 22, end quote.
Motion has been made and Joe, can I get that? Motion has been, thank you. Motion has been made and seconded to amend Article 15, inserting the words first half after the words service through the, and before the words of fiscal year 22. Discussion on the motion to amend Article 15. Seeing none, all those in favor of amending Article 15, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 15 is amended. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 15 as amended. Discussion on Article 15 as amended. Mr. Gelfi, it is. Please, yes.
I'm just wondering, do you also have to change any unused funds at the end of FY 2022, or do you, no?
No, that stays the same, Mr. Gelfi. Yep. Basically, we're funding the ambulance account for the first half, and then we'll do it again in the fall at the special town meeting. Any unused funds of those two buckets of money will be distributed at FY 22 back to the ambulance receipts account. Any further discussion on Article 15 as amended? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 15 as amended, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 15 passes as amended. Article 16, to see if the town will vote to transfer from bond premiums the sum of $10,512 for payment of fiscal year 22 debt service as described below, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 16. Discussion on Article 16. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 16, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 16 passes. Article 17. To see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $1,154,536 for the purpose of paying the debt service on the outstanding bonds and notes for the Raynham Middle School, the renovation projects for La Liberty Elementary School and the Merrill School, and for the Regional High School, to take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 17. Discussion on Article 17. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 17, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 17 passes. Article 18, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $37,000 to carry out state-mandated recertification interim adjustments of all real and personal property valuations and maintenance services for fiscal year 2023. This will be year 2 of a 3-year contract, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 18. Discussion on Article 18. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 18, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 18 passes. Article 19, to see if the town will vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Section 5, Clause 22nd H, which would allow the Board of Assessors to grant an exemption of real estate taxes to the full amount of the taxable valuation of real property of the surviving parents or guardians of soldiers and sailors, members of the National Guard and veterans who, during active duty service, suffered an injury or illness documented by the United States Department of Veteran Affairs or a branch of the armed services that was a proximate cause of their death, or are missing in action with a presumptive finding of death as a result of active duty service as members of the armed services of the United States, provided, however, that the real estate shall be occupied by the surviving parents or guardians as the surviving parents or guardians' domicile, and provided further that the surviving parents or guardians shall have been domiciled in the Commonwealth for the 5 consecutive years immediately before the date of filing for an exemption pursuant to this clause, or the soldier or sailor, member of the National Guard or veteran, was domiciled in the Commonwealth for not less than 6 months before entering service. Surviving parents or guardians eligible for an exemption pursuant to this clause shall be eligible regardless of when the soldier, sailor, member of the National Guard, or veteran died or became missing in action with a presumptive finding of death, provided, however, that the exemption shall only apply for tax years beginning on or after July 1, 2021. Such exemption shall be available until such time as the surviving parents or guardians are deceased. No real estate shall be so exempt which has been conveyed to the surviving parents or guardians to evade taxation. This clause shall take effect upon its acceptance by any city or town, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 19. Discussion on Article 19. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 19, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 19 passes. Article 20, to see if the town will vote to authorize revolving fund spending limits for use by the following accounts of town departments, boards, committees, agencies, or officers under Mass General Laws, Chapter 44, subsection 53E and a half, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 20. I will note that this was submitted by the Office of the Accountant, not the assessors. Discussion on Article 20. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 20, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 20 passes. Article 21, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court of Massachusetts under the provisions of the Home Rule Amendment to the Massachusetts Constitution for the adoption of a special act which would increase the number of selectmen from 3 to 5 or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 21. Discussion on Article 21. And as folks will see, there's a note underneath the article essentially stipulating that this article was submitted by the Board of Selectmen on behalf of the Government Study Committee. This article was originally dismissed at the 2020 annual town meeting, and for that reason it came forward for this year by the Board of Selectmen. This is not an endorsement one way or the other of the article by the Board. Discussion on Article 21. Can I go to Mr. Lewis first? Mr. Lewis and then Mr. Wheeler. Mr. Wheeler, would you like to sit? And I'm going to bring you a microphone. Go ahead, Bill.
Okay. Thank you. Good evening. I'm William Lewis, and I'm here reporting for the Government Study Committee about how this article came to be and what our position is now. The Government Study Committee was established a little bit over 2 years ago, and one of the first items that we looked at was the Board of Selectmen and whether it should be a 3 or 5 person board. And at that time, when we looked at it, we saw that what we considered the Board of Selectmen to be a strong Board of Selectmen and the town administrator position to be a weak town administrator. Not the person, it's a position. So saying that, the Board of Selectmen basically ran the town, and the town administrator basically just took direction from the Board of Selectmen. But the Selectmen were you could say the managers of the town. And at the time, we thought that was the right thing, that we should have, if we're going to have a strong Board of Selectmen, that we should have 5, because there was just too much work for 3 of them to handle. Shortly thereafter, we started looking for a new town administrator. And the Government Study Committee was given the job to look at it, draw up a job description and such. And what we thought as a Government Study Committee, that we should change the makeup of the town from the management standpoint, from having a strong Board of Selectmen to have a weak Board of Selectmen and a strong town administrator. And by that I mean that the town administrator, if you looked in a business sense, would be somewhat like a CEO of a company, and the selectmen would be more like a board of directors, setting policy, setting major things, and some of their things that they have to do by statute, like giving out liquor licenses and used car licenses and that sort of thing. But that came in afterwards. And then we're fortunate enough, we went out and we found a candidate as a town administrator that had both the education and the experience to bring it in. And he's been here for about a year and a half or so. Unfortunately, there's been some missteps both by the town administrator and by our selectmen, and this process has not gone as well as we had hoped. On top of that, we were faced with the COVID pandemic, which also didn't help. So the Government Study Committee again met on April 28th to look at this situation again and what our support would be. At that meeting, we took a vote and we decided that we thought that we should remain at the 3 selectmen for the time being, and possibly at some point in the future move to the 5 selectmen. But we don't think we've had enough experience to go to move it now, and we feel that the strong town administrator with a weak board is the way to go. So at that vote, we're recommending, although it was our article, to go forward with the 5-member board. What we are recommending now is we stay at the 3-member board for the time being, with the understanding that we may be coming back at a future time to change it to 5. One other discussion that we had was whether we should just get up and call to dismiss this article because the Government Study Committee was the one that proposed it. But we felt that this article was important enough that if there was going to be a discussion or a debate, it should really be up to the town meeting to make that decision. So again, it's the Government Study Committee who proposed this article that we're asking that we remain at 3 selectmen. We give this a chance to see how this works with the strong town administrator, weak board. If it doesn't work, we might be back here probably in next year or the following year. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Yeah, please. Mr. Wheeler?
My name is Dwayne Wheeler. I live in George's Loop, which is an over 55 community. I think Mr. Lewis has answered many of the questions and concerns that I have, but I'm very interested in the opinions of the current selectmen or selectmen in the past as to what they see the advantages or disadvantages of going from 3 to 5. I think we all as individuals can guess the advantages and the disadvantages, but there's nothing more important than having experience. So that I'm not asking the selectmen or the former selectmen to tell me or anyone else how they vote. That's their privilege. I'm just asking, based on their experience, what do they see as advantages of expanded or disadvantages? Period. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Dwayne, you're asking for one of the selectmen to speak. Is that what I understand?
Yes.
Okay.
Sure. Sure. Well, thank you for the question, Dwayne. Mr. Lewis, thank you for your report, and appreciation again to the Government Study Committee for the good work that they did over approximately a 2-year period. I've been going back and forth on what I was going to say tonight. In my 14 years as a selectman, I very rarely got up and addressed any particular article because I, generally speaking, believe that my voice should be heard on Tuesday nights and that town meeting should be reserved for all of you. But I'm speaking on this article because not only Dwayne asking me, but because I believe there's some significance to it. I want to first and foremost say that I do not support this article, and I would strongly urge all of you to vote no on this article for a few reasons. First and foremost, we're in the middle of a global pandemic. To introduce such a seismic change to the way government runs during a global pandemic, to me, is quite frankly scary. We are on a day-to-day basis addressing stuff that I've never seen in 14 years, don't think I could ever envision having seen in 14 years, and God willing, will never see again. I'm also against this because of accountability. If the selectmen, as the executive branch of government, are taking up a vote, you, as the electorate, only have to reach out to 3 of us and sway 2 of us. You will be adding 2 votes and 2 voices to the executive branch of government. And I, again, use the executive branch of government because if you look, in cities there is 1 mayor, the executive. There is 1 governor in states, the executive. There is 1 president, the executive. In Massachusetts, and to a lesser extent, New Hampshire and Connecticut, the Board of Selectmen are the executive, and it's extremely unique because we share that power over 3. If you look at the towns that have gone to 5-member boards, you have to look no further than our sisters in Bridgewater and Wareham. It's imploded. It has not been successful, and I'm confident that if you were to reach out to anybody during that transition or since that transition, they will tell you they wish they could go back. Bridgewater, it was so ineffective in Bridgewater that they took another drastic change and again changed their form of government to a town council, town manager form of government, because their government pretty much came to a screeching halt with a 5-member Board of Selectmen. Transparency. You might hear some people tonight saying that it increases transparency. This is the antithesis of transparency. Right now, I cannot legally talk to either one of my 2 colleagues outside of our Tuesday night meetings. If this passes and you go to a 5-member board, I can legally talk to my colleagues prior to a meeting and theoretically whip votes. That is the complete opposite of transparency. In order to know where I stand, you watch the meetings on Tuesday, and that's when all of you hear where I stand, and that's where my 2 colleagues hear where I stand. With a 5-member board, that is gone. People also talk about the open meeting law, and that right now if we talk, we violate the open meeting law. Well, there's also potential violations of the open meeting law with a 5-member board. It's called serial communication. If I talk to Sally and Bob, and I tell Sally what Bob and I talked about, I have then also violated the open meeting law. So don't be fooled and think it's so clear-cut that violations of the open meeting law go out the window if we go to 5 members. Efficiency. And I hope you laugh when I say this, but I'm a conservative Democrat and I'm advocating for less government. You're adding 2 members to government. That, in essence, is less efficient. Less competition. In the past 10 or 15 years, I think there's been 3 or 4 contested selectmen's races. You will be adding 2 seats. So logic would prevail and say there's going to be less competition for the chief executive officer positions in the town of Raynham. Lastly, about 20 years ago, this exact same article came up, and it failed overwhelmingly. And the reason why was the determination was made that there was no compelling reason to drastically change the way government looks and operates in Raynham. I stand before you and tell you again, I don't believe there is any compelling reason to change the way the town of Raynham looks, feels, and operates at this time. And my final piece to you. People will say, well, we're getting big. We're close to 15 or 16,000 people. There are towns almost triple and double our size that have voted no. Just recently, the town of Belmont and the town of Hingham both overwhelmingly voted no because they wanted to preserve the small town feel and character of the town. This is how we've operated for hundreds of years. I would just again emphasize to you there is no compelling reason to change. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Thank you. I don't know if anybody else from the front has comments. Anybody? Mr. DuPont, please find your way. Come on up. I believe you said you have a question?
Mr. Moderator, as a point of order, question to the spokesman on behalf of the Town Government Study Committee, through you. Not for or against the article. I'd like to reserve time to speak in that regard. But I guess I'm a little apoplectic, a little perplexed on why it is, if there is an article that's been submitted by an entity within the town, in this case the Town Government Study Committee, that at one point they recommended, now they're not recommending, that it would seem the arguable thing to do would be to either advocate it be defeated or that it be dismissed. Now, the spokesman for the Town Government Study Committee stated that they had agreed, to come to an agreement, a consensus, that this was a change that they would recommend. Now they are not necessarily not recommending the change, but they're saying not at this time, which arguably to me, procedurally, Mr. Moderator, would be grounds for dismissal of an article, but that does not be the case. So just appreciate if the gentleman speaking on behalf of the Town Government Study Committee could address that. Thank you.
Mr. Lewis, I think I can summarize why not a motion to dismiss.
Well, the reason we didn't want to dismiss is we felt there should be an opportunity for the town meeting to discuss and debate this article. And if we got up, and it's my understanding, is we went up and we asked it to be dismissed, that debate may not happen. Is that?
Well, debate on the article would probably not happen. Debate on the motion to dismiss would, but debate on the article would not happen, right?
So we felt it was important enough to have a debate on the article and let town meeting decide.
Thank you. Would you like to stay up here, Mr. Dupont, or
If someone else wants to speak on
anybody else with questions or comments on Article 21? I think they're waiting for you, Mr. DuPont. I'd ask you to be...
I thought you learned your lesson at the last town meeting.
Well, let me qualify that. I ask you to be economical with your words tonight, sir.
James DuPont, 118 Elm Street East. I would just very quickly point out to Selectman Pacheco, the reason the article was defeated at the previous town meeting was because I proposed it. That's why I think it has a chance tonight. I didn't. This article has been proposed before by me, and unlike Selectman Pacheco and Selectman Shivo and Selectman Riley, Mr. Donahue and I are former selectmen. Now, we served on 3-member boards of selectmen, and I just have to take issue with a couple of statements Selectman Pacheco stated. Joe and I are pretty good friends. We don't agree on this, and I want that clear. There's one thing about this town. We are able to disagree without being disagreeable. And those words were said frequently by a man named Don McKinnon. I had the privilege, the pleasure, the honor, the good fortune to serve with Don McKinnon as a selectman. That said, I think what needs to be stated is that we have a 3-member board of selectmen that I don't think any one of these selectmen will tell you is easy to serve on. That it's no big deal. It's a couple of minutes Tuesday nights. The town has grown. The job has grown. And if you have 5 selectmen, you're still only going to have 1 town administrator. You're still only going to have 1 town meeting. Bridgewater had 3 selectmen and went to 5, and their biggest problem wasn't the selectmen. It was the town meeting voting things that both the 3-member and the 5-member board of selectmen proposed, and then town meeting defeated. It wasn't the problem with the selectmen, it was the problem with the town meeting. This doesn't seem to be a problem here, hence I don't think that's the issue. I looked at this and said this is really very simple. The job has grown. The issues have grown. And you look at the bigger board, the biggest board the town of Raynham has is the Bridgewater-Raynham Regional School Committee. I served on that for 18 years. Patty, longer than that. Longest serving member of the town, Bridgewater-Raynham Regional School Committee, right there. They have 8 members. They spend more money, they have more employees, and serve more people on a day-to-day basis than the town of Raynham does. And the reason they have 8 members is because they don't think 3 people could handle it. But they don't endlessly debate things either. They divide the work. There are 3 main points that I make on why this should pass. And that's one of them. The Bridgewater-Raynham Regional School Committee gives you a good model. They spend more money than this town meeting does. They have more employees, more issues, and they have subcommittees that focus on specific ones of them. When you're a 3-member board of selectmen, any debate is a shootout in a lifeboat. One selectman versus another selectman with a chairman stuck in the middle. And 9 times out of 10, one makes the motion, another one seconds it, and I guess that's what we're doing, isn't it? And as far as debate and discussion and transparency, there isn't any. Now, with a 5-member board of selectmen, I think more people would want to run because they wouldn't have to be elected on a Saturday and Tuesday night shoulder 1/3 of the burden of a town that's gone from 3,000 people when I moved here in 1966 to 15,000. You take the number of licenses, the inspections, the size of the police department, the size of the fire department, the highway department, the dollars. Go down those things. To have 3 people part-time sit for a couple of hours and assume that they have enough knowledge and enough depth and enough study to make a qualified, rational decision on every one of them, I think is not realistic. They're hardworking. They're smart. This is one of the best boards of selectmen we've ever had. But I can look out there right now and see if there are plenty of people out there who were sitting at the table, not as an audience member, but as a selectman, that if 2 selectmen could study Board of Health issues, and subcommittees are public meetings, they're not held in secret. This open meeting law thing is a problem because 2 members is a quorum. When I was on the Bridgewater-Raynham School Committee and did negotiations, we specifically said you can't have a quorum of the board present at negotiations because it represents and can be interpreted as an official act or statement or position of the board. Hence, two selectmen having a conversation or making a statement is a quorum. That's the problem, not the intent. There's no sneaking around behind closed doors concocting plots to undermine people here in this town or sneak things by them. The problem is that they're not able to spend the time and focus on things because there's too much to do. I didn't propose this article this time. And I'm a former selectman. I'm never going to be a selectman again. I'm never going to have my name on a ballot again. Been there, done that. I'm more than happy to let the new people in this town, and there's plenty of them, who are smart, well-motivated people who have the future of the town to think about. And I'd like to see some of those people seated at the table, but I don't want to see a single one of these people leave it. These are three good people, and they need some help, and there isn't a single one of them who doesn't consult with people on an active basis to get issues and get information and find out about things. But the lack of focus, the lack of depth, the lack of careful forethought that three people of must-needs part-time. Don McKinnon, one of my favorite things he said, full-time beats part-time every time. You got three part-time people with a town administrator. There's still only going to be one town administrator. There's still only going to be one fire chief. But there will be more people who will be able to speak on an issue authoritatively and then vote on it. Right now, you want clicks? You got clicks of one. All it takes is one selectman to combine with another selectman, and that's the end of any public discussion.
Mr. DuPont, you mentioned you had 3 points to make. Are you still in the first point?
The moderator has a stopwatch. I'll just conclude by saying that I think this is the time to do this. In deference to my good friend Bill Lewis, he hasn't said that it's the time, but I've just heard this before. What will be the excuse the next time when the town is bigger, when the job is bigger, and people are discouraged from running because it's too much to do? If it's an easy enough job that you can give a little bit of time and make a difference, maybe there are people right now will run for it. Just don't run against these three people. Thanks very much.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion on Article 21. Is that you, Mr. Shaw?
Yes, sir. Good evening. Chris Shaw, 755 Locust Street. I just would like to echo Mr. Pacheco's thoughts and comments regarding this article. I personally am not in favor of it. To specify my reasoning, I lean on my work history. I was an employee of the town of Bridgewater for 30 years, and I watched as many three-member boards were able to move that community forward. And I was also present when the community fell apart, and that all began back in 2008, 2009. And when they decided to go from a three-member board to a five-member board, it created division amongst departments. I saw departments like the fire and the police and the schools infighting, fighting over money, and then using that board to support what they supported as well. Unfortunately, it did not work out well for Bridgewater, and they had a few years where they had to fight to get out of the bad place that they were in. What I will say is, yes, being a selectman, I would imagine, is a very difficult position, especially if you have three. But I see it more as your supporting cast. Who are your department heads? What are they? What kind of load are they shouldering for you? And it's been my observation in the town of Raynham that all of our department heads are good at what they do, and by their support, I think that a three-member board is appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Mrs. DeMello.
Hi, Linda DeMello, a member of the Finance Committee as well as the Government Study Committee. And I also do not support this article. I like being able to turn on the TV on Tuesday nights or turn on my laptop and see exactly what's going on. Transparency. If there are meetings being held privately, that transparency goes away. The other thing I would like to mention is the town of Bridgewater. They went from 3 to 5, and then they went to a town manager and a council, which took all of the power away from the residents. They simply voted for the council members, and they no longer had the ability to come to a town meeting and do what we're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chavo.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I have a couple of comments. I want to give you a little bit more perspective on the issue of transparency. Just to be sure you're clear, with a 3-member board, since 2 make a quorum, there can be no meetings outside of an open meeting that is for public. With a 5-member board, let me just describe this. Let's say the board members are A, B, C, D, and E. All right? A can meet with B, A can meet with C, A can meet with D, A can meet with E, B can meet with D, and so on and so forth. There are literally 10 combinations of meetings between 2 people which do not make a quorum, and if you talk about lack of transparency, I'd like to hear a better definition than lack of transparency than that. 10, and by the way, that's 10 combinations. I don't want to get too deep into this, but if you go permutations, which means not only can A meet with B, but B can meet with A and reach out with a different problem. Transparency is a huge issue with the Board of 5. All right, I'm going to tell you this. I have worked in the business world. I've worked in academia. The bigger the committee, the tougher it is to make decisions. Trust me. That's why when you have a town council, you got a mayor or a super strong TA because you need to make decisions. Okay? Timing couldn't be worse. Now, at some point, if you really think this is a good idea, at least let us digest the transition to a strong town administrator. We're still working with that. God knows we don't need another major change while we're still wrestling with the transition of the one we just made. My last comment is this. There's been a 3-member board, as somebody mentioned earlier, for a number of years. Town isn't doing that badly, is it? I think we've done very, very, very well with the way we're organized now. Let's not upset the apple cart. Let's stay where we are. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chavo. Further discussion on Article 21. Anybody? Mr. Bickle, anybody in your room?
No, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, sir. Just checking to make sure you're awake, to be quite honest with you. Further discussion on Article 21 from the town meeting. Anybody? Going once. Going twice. Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 21, please say aye. Opposed, no. The opinion of the chair, the noes have it. Mr. Bickle, will you confirm that in that room? Yes, sir. Thank you. Article 22. To see if the town will vote to amend the Town of Raynham general bylaws or take any action relative thereto by adding a new section 2/46, single-use styrofoam packaging. And folks, as you will see, there is a rather lengthy article, and I'm not going to read all of the individual subsections. What I'm going to do is trust that my good friend Mr. Gelfi, the citizen petitioner, will give the town meeting in layman's terms a description on what this article would accomplish if passed. Mr. Gelfi.
Yes.
Oh, wait. I need a motion to get on the floor, don't I? You got me all excited, Mr. Gelfi. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 22. Discussion on Article 22. Mr. Gelfi.
All right. First, I want to explain
why I
Name,
submitted...
name and address, please.
Tony Gelfi, 210 Wilbur Street. I submitted the article first for health. The styrofoam is made with oil and other chemicals, including styrene, which has been declared a likely carcinogen by the Department of Health and Human Services, the International Agency for Research on Cancer, and the EPA. Styrene has been found to leach into warm foods and liquids when styrofoam is used as a food container. The environment. Styrofoam, it's been called the perfect pollutant. It's made of chemicals, so it's not non-renewable. It's light, so it easily travels into our waterways and wildlands and breaks into smaller pieces, making it perfect size for animals to ingest and making it difficult to collect. And finally, it breaks into microplastics, or tiny pieces, which enters the waters and soil, polluting the food chain and endangering our health. And we currently have materials that can be used to replace styrofoam, a number of choices. The third reason, most important reason for me, is our children. Americans throw away 25 billion foam cups annually. They're not recycled, and they don't decompose, so they're with our children forever. And that's just styrofoam cups, not all the other styrofoam we use. We are burying the earth and the future of our children in waste. I want to leave our kids a world and environment in which they can live a long, healthy life. Having been a teacher, I could never look one of my students in the eyes and say, we're doing the best to leave you a healthy environment, when we're still using styrofoam despite having materials to replace it. This is pretty limited. It deals with mostly takeout containers that you get at restaurants. If there are a couple of things in, say, Market Basket, the coffee cups, you get a free cup of coffee when you go in there. They wouldn't be able to use foam cups there, but it doesn't stop them from using it for packaging in the meats, for instance. So it's kind of limited in its scope right now. Any questions? I'll try to do my best to answer. Any?
Any questions from the floor on Article 22, the banning of single-use styrofoam packaging? Mr. Bickle, anything over there? It doesn't look like it.
No, Mr. Moderator.
Mr. Shavo?
A couple of concerns. You know, there are pluses and minuses to every issue, and there aren't all pluses to this one, unfortunately. You see, paper comes from trees. Trees protect habitat, so we got to be careful. This isn't 100% one way or the other. There's a fine line here. I happen to be an advocate of habitat. I happen to be an animal advocate. And so I see that. And by the way, we talk about paper being recyclable. I got a news flash. So is plastic. It's recyclable also. The thing about this article that really concerns me, to be honest with you, is the penalties, how aggressive they are, and how are we going to enforce this? You've got a $50 fine. Who's going to manage the enforcement of this? The police are already flat out. And so I just don't see this as very practical. I think there are minuses, and I hope the town, and by the way, I've taught as well, and I can tell you, I don't think this has a lot of value in it net. Thank you.
A couple questions in there for you, Mr. Gelfi, I believe.
Yes. So there are other materials besides paper. Paper is one choice, but there's aluminum, there are plastic containers that aren't throwaway, that are reusable. And there are other choices like sugar cane. There are companies that make sugar cane takeout clamshells, and that's renewable. So there are choices. It's not just paper or plastic. I'm sorry if there was another question in there. I've forgotten it.
Enforcement.
Enforcement is by the Board of Health or designee. I didn't want to get into really too detailed on that because I'm not a government official. You know, I would say that would be up to the Board of Health.
I understand you don't want to get too detailed in it, but as a matter of fact, it is part of the article. So whether you get detailed or not, we are voting on an article that calls for $50, $100, $200 fines. So whether or not you feel close to it, the rest of us who have to vote for this have to live with this within the community. And by the way, when you talk about other materials, and you don't mention them, paper is what's primarily mentioned here, but when you talk about materials like aluminum, guess what energy it takes to make aluminum? It's oil, it's plastic, it's the materials that are made in plastic. So all I'm trying to say is this: there's nothing inherently wrong with what you're saying. It's just that there's no free lunch. So every time you make a turn, there's another side of that coin. There just isn't one side to every coin. And I just don't think that the way this is set out, where the health department has to enforce this, I just think it's very impractical. Last comment.
So I agree that there are two sides to more than two sides to every article. And I've forgotten what you mentioned, the materials. So you're right. Every material that's used will use energy to be made. The question is, what does that material do after it's made? Styrofoam is here forever. It's not recyclable. It doesn't break down except into tiny pieces. It's here forever. All the other materials are either recyclable or compostable. We have choices. And I want to leave my kids, my students, a world that they can live in a healthy manner. And we have the choice to do that now. We can't keep putting it off. So you're right, there are arguments to every side. This is my argument. You want to listen to me? That's fine. If you don't, that's fine. But I believe in this passionately, that it's time to step up and start saying, okay, we have other choices we can make. We're not doing without, we're making better choices.
Thank you. That sounded like a place to end right there, yeah? Thank you, Mr. Gelfi. Any further comment on Article 22, the banning Mr. DuPont?
If you all want to go out and hug a tree, that's fine with me. You can do that whether we have styrofoam packaging or not. But while you're at it, could you stop by my front yard and pick up the trash? I won't argue the environmental issues or the public health issues. Are you proud of living in Raynham? Here's a word for you: blight, trash, strewn about. You've all seen it. And you know where it comes from? Discarded packaging from takeout. There's another article on here about plastic bags. You'll get the same argument out of me on that one. I live on Elm Street East, the lightly traveled Elm Street East, off of the lightly traveled Broadway, which has a number of businesses that dispense foods in styrofoam packaging, a good number of which end up on my front lawn and everybody else's front lawn from Broadway to the Bridgewater town line. And you can say the same thing about South Main Street. You can say the same thing about North Main Street. You can say the same thing about Orchard Street. If you have the luxury and the good fortune to live off of those main streets, you probably don't have this much of a problem. It's a problem. It makes the town look dingy, tarnished, and dumpy. That's the issue to me. And I can tell you how far away the fast food places are because it takes just enough time to finish eating what you bought there on Broadway and throw it out when you turn the corner onto Elm Street. And I don't think there's a resident here or lives on Elm Street now that will say, oh, no, it's not a problem. And I remember, going back to ancient history times, I was a member of the Board of Selectmen when we went to the transfer station that you're now using over on King Philip Street. One of the first issues that we had to confront and deal with was styrofoam. And what we were told at the time, and this was from our town administrator at the time, Randall Buckner, and our highway superintendent at the time, Roger Stolte, that there was no aftermarket use for styrofoam. And now I've got a friend who's a chemist. And he gives me the whole chemical complex formula and everything. And then you look into it, and it's probably cheaper to make China plates and use those than it is to convert styrofoam to something that can be repurposed after it's been used for takeout packaging. It doesn't biodegrade. You can't use it after the first use. And it ends up on my front lawn. I'm not asking for a whole lot. And I'm not asking you to save the planet or hug a tree or make us all green. And as far as enforcement goes, what I have heard from the professionals who run this town who do enforcement, the health agent, the highway superintendent, the police, the fire, you know what they'll say? And they'll say it to the Board of Selectmen. They said it to me. Give us the tools. Give us the tools. Give us a bylaw. We'll make it work. It's not up to the selectmen to do the enforcement. That's the day-to-day. That's the nuts and the bolts. But the people who do the day-to-day, the health inspector, the highways department, the people who clean those streets, they'll tell you, give us a tool so that we can tell somebody who throws this onto somebody's lawn, maybe yours, oh, by the way, that cost you $300. And they will be more than happy to do that, the same way a police officer will give you a ticket for exceeding the speed limit, or the fire department will cite you for a condition of hazard, or the health inspector will cite you for illegally dumping something over the Taunton line because you got turned away at the transfer station. I'd ask this article be passed. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Dupont. Further discussion on Article 22. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 22, please say aye. Opposed, no. Ooh. I think we're going to use our clicker for the first time, folks. So, Peter, if you could open up voting on Article 22. Folks, are we open? Go ahead and click away. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Looks like we've got a few out there, folks, that I know have been given out but haven't voted. We'll give those folks another 10 seconds or so. Mr. Betancourt. You left our very expensive clicker on the floor. Have you voted, Mr. Betancourt? You don't want to change your mind? You're good? Several times. Okay, well, last call. 5 seconds. We're going to close the vote. We have 125 registered voters, and I can see 119 have voted. I think we're close enough. Peter, if you could close the vote and show the tally, please. I'm seeing 56 in the affirmative and 63 in the negative. Article 22 does not pass. Article 23, to see if the town will vote to amend the general bylaws by adopting a bylaw or take any action relative to thereto entitled Reduction of Single-Use Plastic Bags as follows. And again, this is a citizen's petition, and I'm not going to read the entire article, but I will trust that our citizen petition, I believe Mr. Smith is here. Want to come forward, sir? Mr. Smith's wife, Chelsea, is the sponsor of this article, and he will be speaking on her behalf tonight. Maybe you could give us a kind of a high-level explanation of what this is, and then we can get into our debate.
I will try my best. Thank you very much.
Hold on 1 second. That's twice I did that. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 23. Discussion on Article 23, Mr. Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I thought Mr. DuPont spoke excellent in favor of styrofoam. I was a little disheartened to watch that fail. I'm just going to give you a couple of numbers real quick, and I will hope the town, again, reconsiders something for our health, the health of our children. My son is here with me today. We kayak in Hewitt's Pond. We bike to Gushy. We've been in Johnson's Pond more times than I can tell you. The truth of the matter is that plastic bags are produced over 100 billion every single year. It takes over 400 million gallons of oil to produce those plastic bags, and they're everywhere. And I would like to see this enforcement. I would like to see these stores, Shaw's, Stop and Shop, I'd like to see them transition to paper at best. It is a renewable source. I have a number of people that I know who are in forest management. It is something that will not stay with us forever. If you take a plastic bag, you're supposed to use it about 14 times before it becomes economical, before it's served its purpose. I wonder how many people in this room have used a plastic bag 14 times. I commend you. Thank you. I saw one hand. As Mr. Gelfi said correctly, they take about 200 years to break down into smaller particles. They enter into our oceans, into our streams. There have been a number of studies and a lot of misconceptions about this. There are currently 164 towns and communities in the state of Massachusetts that have taken action to limit this usage. The country of Ireland banned it in 2002, and they saw litter decrease by 95%. I strongly encourage us to look at this, to understand there is another way, and to vote in favor of banning these bags in our town, which I am proud to represent in this moment, and I am going to keep it brief, and please hope you consider this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion on Article 23, the reduction of single-use plastic bags. Mr. Chavo.
This will be a Jimmy DuPont response. To my last response to the styrofoam, and of course one also has the heavy penalties associated with it, which I'm sure I don't understand how that'll be enforced, but I would simply say ditto.
Thank you for your brevity and your economic use of words. Any further discussion on Article 23? Mr. DuPont. Hopefully you appreciate the good example Mr. Chavo set.
Mr. Chavo correctly said ditto, and I'll say ditto again, except that I'll punctuate it by saying I take more in plastic bags to the transfer station than I do recyclables of every type, as well as the trash that I pay to put into the household. Just the bags. And those are the ones that I pick up off my front lawn. I'll put the styrofoam in them when I drop them off next time. I hope this passes. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Further discussion on Article 23, reduction of single-use plastic bags. Whoa, where? Would you like to come up to the microphone, ma'am? State your name and address for the record.
Hello, I'm Susan St. Germain. I happen to be the mother of Chelsea Smith, who wrote this article. One of the things that I want to further point out are that there are other options to using plastic bags perhaps more options than the styrofoam. I go into Market Basket and I bring my own reusable bags, the ones that are stitched, the ones that are have handles, and they're very nice about letting me bring them in, and they even package them for me. Now, Shaw's didn't do that, but now I go in there and I say, gee, can I have a paper bag? And they're great about it. I went into Roach Brothers a couple weeks ago, and I had forgotten that they don't use plastic bags anymore. They put mine in paper bags, and I said, yes, Bridgewater. Middleborough has it on their ballot now. My friend Jeff Stevens is promoting it there. It's simple. There are options. If you look around at wildlife, I'm a naturalist. I'm brokenhearted at seeing what's happening to all of our ponds and rivers. Watch these TV shows that shows the effects of simple plastic bags. And the last thing I'm going to say is we're not talking about the bags that when you go to the produce department and you put your tomatoes in. That's not included in this. We're talking about the bags that they wrap your groceries in when you walk out the door. So I urge you to vote against plastic bags. Thank you.
Thank you. And just noting, a vote against is actually a yes vote on this article. So there's no confusion. Any further discussion on Article 23, the reduction of single-use plastic bags? Come on up, ma'am. Please. Name and address for the record, please.
Hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Ian Amada, and I live at 57 Tucker Terrace. And this is for plastic bags. And the reason I'm for it is because there are tons of things you can do with those. It's good for the seniors when they get older, and they need to get rid of their hygienic, how do I put this, negativity. That's one thing. Another is when you walk a dog and you need something to put that in, you can use a plastic bag. The bathroom, little buckets, you can put the plastic bags in that. I use it for other things as well, to put things together that I'm working on, and then instead of having a box or something else to put it in, it's just, they're not bulky, they're simple, they're easy to put somewhere, and if you use the bags from the stores, they get dirty. After so many uses, you got to wash them, and who's going to take that time? Also, COVID-19, people just want to be sanitary, and they put things in there, and they just throw the bag out. I mean, that's what's happening now. So maybe this just isn't the time to be changing the way laws are about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 23. In the way back, come on down. Name and address for the record, please.
Hi, Randy Carson, 126 Chickering Road. And I am against the ban on plastic bags. And there's one thing we're talking about, using reusable bags. There are some places in the United States where they're banning these reusable bags. They've done studies on them and show the contamination. Oh, thank you. I should have known well enough to do that. Yeah, that's pretty stupid of me. I mean, they've actually had studies that show the people that use these reusable bags, they're full of bacteria, viruses, salmonella, E. coli. Now, the proponents of using these reusable bags are going to say, well, you're supposed to wash them and sterilize them every time you use them. Well, I think we should get kind of real. The chances of people washing and sterilizing their reusable bags on a regular basis are really minimal to non-existent. We know the way people are, okay? And I also think, especially with this time where we're just beginning to get rid of all the restrictions on COVID and all the inconveniences and financial hardships caused, especially with restaurants, businesses, and everywhere. The last thing we want to do is to put more stress at this point in time on these businesses by making them switch over to paper bags and reusable bags, which I've already talked about, which is completely ridiculous. And the cost of paper bags is probably going to start going up as everything else is in the country with the problems with the gas and everything else. This is just a terrible time to consider this. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Anybody else that we haven't heard from? Article 23. Way back, come on down. I hear another one way back. Hey. Name and address for the record.
Yes, Martha Brewer, 110 Britton Street. I'm for the article, and I just want to point out with the conversations or the points that have been made, I'm old enough to remember when we didn't use plastic bags, and we got along just fine. You know, the reusable bags, I love them. It's not a problem to throw them in the washing, but the paper bags are just fine too. I don't understand why we don't want to look at the future. We don't want to leave the place better for our kids. It's such a simple thing we can do. If your dog poops, there's lots of ways you can deal with that without having... There are cornstarch bags specifically for picking up dog poop that you can use that are biodegradable. There are lots of ways to deal with this issue, and you can still have all the convenience you currently have. So I think sometimes we're just so short-sighted. We don't want change, but everything has already changed, and it's changed in my lifetime for all these pollutants that are on lawns or in oceans or in our forests. So if we don't do something, we're not solving problems here. So I appreciate the folks who've put these ideas forward, and I hope people will consider them. And if your issue is convenience, believe me, you can get by without plastic bags. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Anybody else on Article 23? Reuse of plastic bags. Prohibition of reusable plastic bags, or not reusable plastic bags. Single use. That's it. Anybody else? 23. I don't see anybody, so we're going to call a vote here. All those, and just to be clear, folks, this is kind of like an opposite vote. A yes vote would actually prohibit the bags. So if you're thinking out there, you know, no, I don't want to prohibit the votes, that's not a yes vote. That's a no vote, right? Yeah. So, Article 23. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Opinion of the chair, the ayes have it. Mr. Bickle?
None, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, sir. Article 24. To see if the town of Raynham will vote to raise, appropriate, and/or transfer the sum of $2,500 for the purpose of funding a second hazardous waste day coordinated by the Highway Department or take an action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to approve Article 24. Discussion on Article 24. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 24, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 24 passes. Article 25, to see if the town will vote to create a town bylaw which requires all elected town officials to attend the annual town meeting, the fall town meeting, and any special town meeting as required by the town of Raynham or take any action relative thereto. Mr. Texera.
John Texera, 122 First Street. Mr. Moderator, I'd like to make a motion to dismiss Article 25.
Motion has been made and seconded to dismiss Article 25. Mr. Betancourt, was there a question? Oh, thank you, sir. We're doing it in Article 26. That's essentially why, right, John? Yep. All those in favor of dismissing Article 25, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Article 25 is dismissed. Article 26, to see if the town of Raynham will vote to amend the general bylaws by adding a new section entitled Town Meeting Attendance - Elected Officials as follows, or take any action relative thereto. Section 1, all elected town officials are required to attend the annual town meeting and all special town meetings, and that's submitted by citizens petition. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 26. Discussion on Article 26. Mr. Texera.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Moderator. I am the originator of this article. I feel that it's important for the town officials to be at our town meetings, to answer any questions that may come up. We've been fortunate tonight. There haven't been any that have come up that couldn't be answered. In the past, I've seen questions come up, were not answered. To credit to our moderator, he's always gotten back to the person who's answered that question. Unfortunately, in those circumstances, everyone else who was at the town meeting didn't have the benefit of the answer to that. I think that where we entrust these folks as our town officials to represent us, the least they can do is be at our town meeting, which is the essence of government for our town. Now, at the pre-town meeting last week, I was asked, well, what's the enforcement? How do you enforce this to make sure they're there? Well, I didn't put any enforcement language in this because I feel that the people who run for elected officials, for elected officers in our town, are honorable enough to do what the job calls for. If the job says that you have to be at the town meeting, you should be at the town meeting. Now, if we find in the future it isn't happening, well, then maybe we've got to amend the law if, in fact, it's passed. Thank you.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 26. Mr. Dupont. And then Mr. Betancourt. Mr. Dupont is yielding to Mr. Betancourt, and we also have Mr. Tilby. The three of you are going to have to decide who goes first. Mr. Betancourt, you've been tapped on the shoulder. Either one, whatever's easier for you, sir.
I'm older than both of them, so this is shorter.
Okay.
This is a noble idea. I'm on the board of sewer commissioners. I'm at town meeting. I'm an elected official. My wife is homesick. What if I was homesick? I couldn't show up. The article doesn't provide for excused absences. If you're mandated to show up, it's not a did I or didn't I. I have no problem being required to show at town meeting or any other meeting that anything has to do with the sewer because I'm a commissioner. You elected me to do a job. But when the article just is simple that you are required to attend, I hope you don't have a heart attack on the way over. What are you going to do? So there's got to be a little bit of common sense as to accepting the responsibility of a job. Don't make it absolutely part of the job. Reverend Tilby is going to speak. He's our pastor here at the Stone Church. He took the job. Nobody told him he had to preach to his congregation. That's part of why he took the job. So I don't know why you want to force people to have to be someplace at a particular time when they don't control the circumstances all the time. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. Reverend Tilby.
James Tilby, 18 North Main Street, and by the way, they pay me to preach. but I was called to that position. I also serve the town of Raynham on the Cemetery Commission. I'm beginning my third term this month. It is a volunteer position. I do not get paid for that. A number of our elected positions are unpaid, and those that are paid a very small amount for what the responsibilities entail. So I will echo Mr. Betancourt's thought that to require is very strong language. And there are times with my busy schedule when I simply cannot get, say, to a special town meeting to buy a new roof for the highway garage, which has nothing to do with the Cemetery Commission, but I would be required to be there. And, you know, unfortunately, we have more and more evening funeral services. Am I going to have to say to the family, I'm sorry, I can't conduct the funeral service because I have to go to this meeting about the garage roof? It doesn't make sense. Urge, cajole, recommend, all of those are good things. To say you're required to be at every meeting does not make sense. It's a step too far.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Dupont.
Yeah, try following Joe Betancourt and Reverend Tilby sometime. Reverend Tilby kind of said what I think is the crux of my opposition to this. First of all, elected boards are part-time, unpaid, many of them. And first and foremost, they have a chairman who is usually empowered to speak for the board if there is something that needs to be addressed. Reverend Tilby just made the point. There are town meetings at which very few elected boards have articles that pertain to them. Now, it's arguable that if there's something on the agenda, on the warrant that an elected board has an interest in, that they should be there. But ultimately, if they're not there, that can be noted and the voters can address that. We'll get to the term limits one next. But if there's no reason for them to be there on the agenda, why compel them to be there? I think this would be a disincentive for people. That the Cemetery Commission, my father served on it a number of years. You didn't have to tell my father to go to town meeting. Some of you would prefer I not, but I'm here voluntarily as a citizen. Joe Betancourt said he's a citizen, he's an elected official, but he's here on his own tonight. He's not here because you told him to be. So I think that the elected boards, the elected people, if they want to come to town meeting, they will and they should. Every citizen should. There's 5,000 people in this town who could be here tonight, and it's their money, but they chose not to come. So I think that an elected board that doesn't have something on the agenda, there's no reason to compel them to go to a town meeting that they're not part of the vote. And more importantly, the chairman could be sent to speak for them. But the last thing I'll say is most of these part-time boards have full-time people who can answer the questions that any one of you might have far better than the elected people. But more importantly, you can usually get those answers at pre-town meeting or just by calling up and talking to them and not asking them in front of 100 people for the answer. You should probably get those questions asked before you come down here to vote. So I would oppose this article for those reasons. Thank you, Mr. Moderator.
Thank you, Mr. Dupont. Any further discussion on Article 26? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 26, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 26 fails. Article 27, to see if the town will vote to create a town bylaw to establish term limits for all elected town offices. The limits should be established as below, or take any action relative thereto. I believe this one will also be dismissed, Mr. Texera.
Yes, Mr. Moderator. Make a motion to dismiss Article 27.
Motion has been made and seconded to dismiss Article 27. Discussion on the motion to dismiss Article 27. Seeing none, all those in favor of dismissing Article 27, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 27 is dismissed. Article 28. To see if the town of Raynham will vote to amend the general bylaws by adding a new section entitled Term Limits as follows, or take any action relative thereto. Section 1, no official that holds an office with a 3-year term shall serve in that office for more than 4 terms. No official that holds an office with a 5-year term shall serve in that office for more than 3 terms. Section 2, officers currently serving in office that have surpassed the term limit of their office will be ineligible for re-election at the conclusion of their term submitted by citizen petition. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 28. Discussion on Article 28. We'll start with Mr. Texera, the sponsor of the article.
Once again, John Texera, 122 First Street. First of all, let me make a clarification here. This does not affect positions on the Bridgewater Raynham School Board. That's a separate entity, is not involved in this whatsoever. Secondly, this does not preclude someone who meets the limit, the term limit in their particular position from running for a different position in the town. So if you're a selectman and you can no longer run as selectman, you can in fact run for town clerk or planning board or whatever. Just as a clarification. This article is about change. In the pre-town meeting last week, there was a bit of a discussion, Mr. Betancourt especially, on political involvement in this town. Tonight, I think we said we had 225 people here. Is that correct, Marcia? And I think I asked you at pre-town meeting how many registered voters there are, and you told me approximately 9,000. Now there's 11,000. Okay, that's great. I'm sorry? Okay. 125, I'm sorry, here tonight. I'd like to see, and I think we all would, more people involved in our town government. I feel that if new people were able to get into office, we very rarely have people run opposed. Long-term position holders don't get run against because it's too difficult. There's such a small turnout. Last election, 499 people voted out of 11,000. Okay, I've worked as a warden. I've seen 1,000 people. When I ran for office, 1,000 people voted out of 11,000. Okay, people are just. I think if we limit the terms for people, new people will get in. New people mean new ideas, new perspectives on things, and I think it's just healthy. Change is healthy in any organization, whether it be an industry or a government or any organization. Change is good. So I urge you to vote for this. It's not the end of the world. And by the way, this is not a statement in any way of the performance of anyone who's in office today or has been in office in the past. This is just, I think, a good idea in general. We certainly hear a lot about term limits at the federal level. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion on Article 28? Mr. Pacheco.
Thank you. I'll be brief on this one. I appreciate you all indulging me earlier. I want to speak against this for a few reasons. First and foremost, successful organizations talk about continuity and consistency, and they try to find ways to offset transition and change. Because when you lose that, you lose productivity. When you're in elected office, and I can tell you this because, again, as I said earlier, I'm in my 14th year in these types of positions, you see new things every single day, and not that often do you see the same thing multiple times. But having the ability to be in a position to voice your opinion on an issue that has come up multiple times, I think gives a level of consistency and credibility to that discussion. When you talk about elections, we are hemorrhaging volunteers right now, and I say volunteers because as a selectman, this is not my full-time job. This is not the job that I can retire from financially. I do this because I am fourth generation Raynham. My great-grandfather was the town's first police officer. My grandfather started the Park and Rec department and was the town's first Park and Rec commissioner. My father is a police captain. We are involved in Raynham because we are passionate about Raynham, because we love Raynham, and because we want Raynham to succeed. If this passes, and not to get overly political, but I would be done in about 10 months. I should have the choice if I want to run for re-election in April, and you all should have the choice if you want to have me stay in office or not. 2 years ago I ran, I had an opponent, and all of you, or some of you at least, voted to re-elect me. Those are our term limits. Elections are our term limits. That's how it should be, especially in a situation in municipal government where, again, we are hemorrhaging volunteers. We used to have term limits on the Finance Committee. We had to get rid of those because we couldn't keep people on. And it's not just about keeping people on. It should also be about keeping qualified people on, and people on who have the best interests of our community. I don't know about you, but I live in Raynham. I pay taxes in Raynham. A lot of my family live in Raynham and pay taxes in Raynham. I want qualified people in these positions leading our town, not just people because there's a vacancy and nobody else stepped up. So I would urge you to vote no on this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Pacheco. Further discussion on Mrs. Sylvia? Are you, yes? Town Clerk Sylvia on Article 28, term limits.
First of all, Joe stole my first line, so I'm sorry. Marcia Sylvia, 41 Laurel Lane. I am the town clerk. I've been the town clerk since 2012. I'd just like to make a few comments regarding this proposed bylaw, which was submitted by a citizen's petition. I also have a comment on the way it was presented, and I will mention that at the end of this. The following offices are elected in Raynham: Selectman, Moderator, Town Clerk, Assessors, Sewer Commissioners, Planning Board, Housing Authority, Park and Recreation Commissioners, Cemetery Commissioners, and Bridgewater Raynham School Committee was just on our ballot, so I just had a question, if I could direct this through the moderator, as to how we know that the school committee is not affected by this bylaw. So I just wanted to know how that came about.
I'm not sure that we've had a legal opinion on this. I'm looking at our town council. Have you been asked to opine on whether or not this affects our...
I have not. I can read this and tell you what I think of.
Sure, we'll come back to that legal question in a second.
Okay,
It'd be hard for me to imagine how term limits would be affected over the border, though, so...
Just a question, because they are voted on our election. We just did vote for them.
We'll come back. We'll hear from town
Yeah.
council.
I just wanted to know how we know for sure that it isn't the school committee.
Point of order, Mr. DuPont.
Oh, Jimmy, you're going to cut in front of me. No.
If you have a point of order, that's a statement and it's brief.
The point of order is, in 1978, I was elected to the Bridgewater Raynham Regional School District Committee by the district, not by the town. This was pursuant to a Supreme Court ruling on the one-man, one-vote issue that Bridgewater had more people and voters than Raynham, but we had the same number of members on the school committee. Hence, the Bridgewater Raynham School Committee is a district office which would not fall within the purview of the definition of town office. Hence, this bylaw could not apply to them. I'll let town council give you a legal opinion on it, but that was the reading in 1978, which is, I think, still correct as of today.
Thank you, Mr. DuPont. Mrs. Sylvia, continue on. We'll get that answer for you.
Okay, because I also wanted to mention about the water district. They have their water commissioners in there. That's different. It's different, but anyway. Okay, so I'll be brief. So I just wanted to know, but some of the commissioners are unpaid. They, as Reverend Toby said, they give up their free time, and they would be limited to not be able to run again. They ran because they want to help. These people are all dedicated. They have the experience, knowledge, and the education. And I'm just wondering, I know, Mr. Texera, you said that there haven't been any, it isn't anything against anyone, but I'm just wondering, have there been any complaints against town officials, any lawsuits filed against any of the town officials? That question came to my mind. I also wondered how you feel that this is in the best interest of the town of Raynham. When 14 people signed this petition, many have not voted in town elections since 2010, because I spent 2 hours at my kitchen table researching it over the weekend. My office is the only full-time office that would be affected. Who would even want to run for an office knowing in 9 years that you'd have to leave? And as far as the federal government, some of those people are career politicians, but I don't feel that in the town of Raynham they are career politicians. They're people that really care. In many cases, these people have to be certified. This takes dedication and the willingness to serve. So I'll end with this. Since their experience and dedication are not limited, why should their terms be? And my last comment about citizens' petition that was supplied by the Board of Selectmen, it clearly states the proposed warrant article is to be included at the top of each signature page. This petition did not have the entire warrant article on the signature page. Section 1 was not on a signature page. And that comes from experience in knowing about things like this. So thank you for your time. I appreciate you to vote against term limits. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Sylvia. Further discussion on term limits, Article 28. Mr. Shaw.
Again, good evening, Mr. Moderator. Thank you. Chris Shaw, 755 Locust Street. I'm also an elected official. I'm a Park and Rec Commissioner. I've lost count of the amount of years that I've been in the role of commissioner, but I'm one of the two that would be affected by this, as I would not be able to run again because I've exceeded the amount that's allowed, which would be 12 years, according to this article. My point is that, first of all, I do it because I like to give back to the town in whatever way I can. Volunteerism is big and, for me and my family, and I enjoy it. I have a passion for park and recreation in town, and I want to make sure that we continue to do the right thing for the residents of the community. I guess if the day comes where I'm not allowed to run again, and there is somebody as passionate or more passionate to me about the town and park and recreation, that I would be happy to step aside and let them run for that office and let them go unopposed. My point is that over the last 15 plus years I've been in that office, every commissioner has pretty much been recruited. Nobody wants to volunteer their time. And I think that's the same amongst a lot of our elected boards and committees. And I just don't think it's a good idea right now. And I don't see what's broken. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any further discussion on Article 28, term limits? Mr. DuPont. Either way, whichever microphone is quicker to get to.
I'll use the microphone that's closest to the on-off switch that the moderator has. I oppose this article on a number of grounds, and you've heard some of them already, but I think the essence of it that I just have to say, one of the reasons there's only a few people here tonight is because the people you have elected have done such a good job and there's so little controversy. One of the reasons the 5-member Board of Selectmen was defeated was because people are happy with the job that the 3 you've got are doing. And the form of that is to get elected to it. If we had term limits, you'd have never had a Don McKinnon. You'd have never had a Bill Lewis who served the years he did as an assessor. And experience counts. Now, the proponent of the article said that change is good. Is it always? Is a new idea necessarily a good idea? I can tell you as a matter of fact, having served with Don McKinnon, ideas I had that I thought were new and great, he gave me we've heard that before. Just because you're new doesn't mean your idea is new. But the people with the experience that Marcia Sylvia has, and her who's worked in the office for a number of years, for her mother was town clerk for how long, Marcia? You know, decades. But she knew the job. Somebody new will have to learn the job, whether it's as a selectman, an assessor, a town clerk. And there isn't a selectman that's ever served in this town or any other elected office who wasn't better the second year than they were the first. And there isn't a selectman or any other elected official who served for a number of years who didn't have that time that a young person got elected new, a Joe Pacheco, a Jim DuPont, or the very young Dick Shivo, who benefited from the experience that that person had from years of having been there, done that. So change for change's sake is not automatically good, and saying it's a new idea doesn't mean it's new. The people who have been around will tell you, we've heard that before, we tried it, it didn't work. And I have to say this, I understand the frustration people have with politics. I'm a Republican. Try that on for size if you want term limits, okay? I've tried term limiting plenty of people in my life. I lost. I'm a big boy. I go to the next election and I try again. If the people want somebody in office, it should be up to them to decide it and not be arbitrarily somebody shown the door just because of some number. I hope the article is defeated. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. DuPont. I was very impressed with your brevity. Any further discussion on Article 28? Do we have a question, or do we have Town Council Peanick an opinion on the Bridgewater Raynham, or at least some direction or guidance for us?
So I'm not familiar with the case you're referring to, Jim, with regards to the two towns. I'm just looking at the language that's here, and it says no official that holds an office. And there clearly is no limitation in that language as to what particular board they may be on or eligible for. So my concern off the bat, and again, without looking at that case, I really can't tell. It says specifically no official that holds an office. So I don't think you can, right off the top, say that someone who's on the school committee is exempt. Now, that might be the case. I don't know. I'd have to look at it further. The other issue that came up with regards to this is the issue, they were, in legal terms, it's called nunc pro tunc. It means it goes back to the beginning. This particular proposed bylaw, and the other issue that I have with it is that it says anything that you've done up until now is counted. So I would think that the best way that it should be written is not that what you've done counts against you. As of this date, from here on in, this is the amount of time that you can serve. I think there's a potential legal problem when you go backwards and try to bring into the equation the time that somebody has already done, because you're basically preventing someone from running again. And there's several people in here that I'm aware of that are already spoken who would indicate to you that it's going to prevent them from running in the future. So if you want term limits, I would suggest the best way to do it from a legal perspective is not to cut off someone's ability to run in the next election. It's that it should go from this date forward. So if you're going to limit someone to 3 terms, it's from 3 terms from this date forward, not looking into your rearview mirror. Okay?
Thank you, Councilor. Further discussion on Article 28, term limits, citizens petition. Seeing none. All those in favor of Article 28, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 28 fails. Article 29, to see if the town will vote to accept as a town way the roadway known as Christina's Pathway, as shown on the plan entitled Street Acceptance Plan of Christina's Path in Raynham, Massachusetts, prepared for Stephen Joyce, dated July 28, 2020, recorded at Plan Book 8176, page 274 at the Bristol County Northern District Registry of Deeds, such acceptance being subject to conveyance in fee of said way by owner at no cost to the town or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 29. Discussion on Article 29. What do we think, Ted? Just go with it? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 29, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 29 passes. Article 30, to see if the town will vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to accept permanent easements for public way purposes over the properties located on Pleasant Street, Raynham, Mass. And there is a description of the locus on Pleasant Street, 381 and 417 Pleasant Street, or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 30. Discussion on Article 30. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 30, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 30 passes. Article 31, to see if the town of Raynham will vote to amend the general bylaws by adopting a bylaw entitled Library Board of Trustees or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 31. Discussion on Article 31. And there is a fairly lengthy description. If anybody has any questions on that, we'd be happy to answer. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 31, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 31 passes. Article 32, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $35,000 to settle the legal case of Riverwalk LLC versus Town of Raynham Planning Board et al., or take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 32. Discussion on Article 32. Mrs. Sylvia, Town Clerk Sylvia.
Raynham. I'll make this quick. I asked at pre-town meeting last week what it was about, the settlement was for. I really was a little confused by the answer. I'm wondering if we could get a little more in-depth answer as to what we're paying $35,000 for. Thank you.
So I'm going to just further detail town council on what this article is to the extent that you can share and still maintain your legal
Unbiased opinion.
And protect the lawsuit, I guess.
So basically what had occurred here was there was a lawsuit filed against the town of Raynham with regards to some things that had occurred with respect to the planning board. This has been going on for over a year and a half, I'd say. We've worked long and hard to try to get this squared away. And at this point in time, I would respectfully suggest that the best thing for the town to do is to pay this sum to bring the matter to a conclusion. To not do that puts the town at risk for upwards of $250,000, and I would suggest it's not in the best town's interest to run that risk.
Thank you, Town Council. Further discussion or questions on Article 32? Mr. Dupont, please approach. I'm trying to get you your steps tonight, Jim. I'm not going to let you do it from the floor.
Geez, you brought a microphone out to Dwayne Wheeler. Mr. Moderator, through you to the Town Council, will this be subject to a non-disclosure agreement as far as the specific terms and only the amount being made public because it's voted at a town meeting?
Yes.
Thank you very much.
Further discussion on Article 22. 32. It's getting late. Article 32. Further discussion on Article 32. Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 32, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 32 passes. Article 33, to see if the town will vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $300,000 for the purpose of repair and renovation projects at the Merrill School, Liberty Elementary School, and the Raynham Middle School, taking the action relative thereto, and you see the itemized detail of the expenditures in the article. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 33. Discussion on Article 33. In the back. Come on down. Name and address for the record.
Donna Bonanno, White Street. I have a question here regarding the monies being appropriated for $76,000 for middle school, replace the boiler. Didn't we just pass on Article 19 at the special town meeting? Monies appropriated for that, and in Article 17 of the town meeting, $1,154,000 $536 for projects regarding the elementary school, Merrill School, the
Yep.
regional high school. We already appropriated monies for that, for a lot that's on the article.
Yep, so very good question on the, and I think somebody here can explain it on the article from the special town meeting. I will point you back to Article 17 on the annual town meeting. That $1.1 million that you reference is for the outstanding debt service on those three buildings, Middle, La Liberty, and 4 buildings, Merrill and the high school. So,
And also renovation projects for the La Liberty School, the Merrill School, the regional high school.
Yeah, so we took out debt, a little history lesson here. So all of the debt listed in Article 17, it was to build the school that you're standing in, to build the high school, and to renovate. If you think back to, who knows the dates of when we renovated La Liberty and Merrill.
I just wanted to know if
Yep.
all this was
So when it mentions
combined,
when it mentions,
because it's the redundancy.
no, not on Articles. Article 17 and Article 33, there's no overlap there. Article 17 is just the debt for the construction of this school, the construction of the high school, and the renovation projects about, I want to say 15 years ago across the street at La Liberty and Merrill. Now, with regards to the special town meeting, very observant on your part that you noticed that Article 19 in the special town meeting and Article 33 look the same, don't they? And
Yeah.
I'm hoping that either Dr. Priwandowski from the school committee or perhaps our town finance committee or town administrator, anybody but me can answer that question for you.
Thank you.
Oh, and Ms. King is here from the school committee as well. But it looks like it's going to be Mr. Legge. He's been getting off pretty easy tonight.
I just wanted to point out that Article 19 was for $358,000. That was the first half of the items to be repaired and renovated. And then Article 33 in the annual town meeting is the second half of things to be repaired and renovated. We split the funding sources between 2 articles. This one we're talking about now is a raise and appropriate, and the previous article, number 19, was free cash.
That's satisfactory. It was Mrs. Bonanno, right? Is that satisfactory? They've used 2 different funding sources. So at the special town meeting, they used free cash to pay for approximately half of those projects. At the annual town meeting, they're using raise and appropriate, which is another word for taxation, for the second half of the project. So if you add Article 19 from the special and 33 from the annual, that's one big project. They just cut the way that they're going to pay for it in 2 different articles. Thank you. Dr. Priwandowski.
Any easier, there's 6 boilers at the middle school, and we have replaced 2 of them so far, and then Article 33 talks about a boiler that's going to be replaced as part of the capital plan, so there are 6 altogether.
Thank you. Further discussion on Article 33. Mrs. King.
Hi, Rachel King, 561 South Main Street, also a school committee current chair. So this year the town agreed to do capital as a separate expense, and they also wanted us this year to list out every capital expense, just so for more clarity for each item that we're going to be doing. So all of the items listed on the special town meeting article as well as on this current town meeting article were all things from the 2022 school year capital improvement plan, which we provided to the town. We have our 10-year improvement plan, and those were all the items from this year that we had requested. So every time we do an item from that plan for this year, we will submit the receipts and expenses to the town. So they just wanted, for clarity, everything listed out this year rather than just a lump sum.
Thank you. Further questions or comments on Article 33? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 33, please say aye. Opposed, no. Article 33 passes. Article 34, to see if the town will vote to appropriate $30,500,000 to pay costs of engineering and construction services for a public safety building in Raynham, so as to improve the public safety services and facilities of the town, and construct a facility that meets the latest code and employment equity requirements, to determine whether this appropriation shall be raised by borrowing or otherwise provided, or to take any action relative thereto. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 34. Discussion on Article 34. Mr. Iafredi. What do we decide?
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. My name is Bob Iafredi. I'm the building inspector in Raynham. I'm also the chair of the Public Safety Building Committee. We had a committee put together of about 13 members. A couple of years ago, we started off by trying to do an addition on the fire station because it's so small, needed some renovation work. Through studies of that building, we found that there was a need for a new building, not just for the fire department, but also for the police department. So this committee was put together. We were given funding to engage with a OPM, Pomeroy Associates, and an architect, Doran Whittier. About 2 years into this and about 25 meetings, we've formulated a building plan and a budget to hopefully move forward and bring the town a new public safety building over off of King Philip Street. There's been presentations made and posted on the website, also on other social media venues for your pleasure to take a look at. It's a 19 or 20-minute long video. We've brought a condensed version of that presentation for you tonight that we'd like to show you, but not, have you sit through the whole 19 minutes. If you'd like to see it, you can go on the website of the town and you can view that at your leisure. With me tonight, I have Rick Pomeroy and Taylor McDonald from Pomeroy Associates, and they will be able to answer any questions you may have after we do the presentation. So if we can have Sean show the short PowerPoint with the 2 short videos afterwards, and then we'll answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
That's your advance. I don't have anything more.
Right next.
I think it's the green arrow, and then you have to go.
Okay, yeah. Good evening. My name is Taylor McDonald with Pomeroy Associates, and as Bob said, we have a condensed version of the video that was circulated around town on the new public safety facility. I'll try to go through this as quickly as possible and to try to keep it as best time for everybody. So first, I just wanted to go through quickly who our committee was made up of. First, Building Commissioner Robert Iafredi, Town Administrator Graham Waters, Building Committee Member Dan Andrade, Landowner and Building Committee Member John Noblin, Landowner and Building Committee Member Frank Campbell. Oh, sorry, I'm trying to use. How do we go back? There we go. All right. Our Fire Chief, Brian Lasivita, our Deputy Chief, Barrett Johnson, Raynham Fire Department Captain Jeffrey Kelleher, Raynham Fire Department Chief James Donovan, Raynham Police Department, I'm sorry, I'm all screwed up now. Our Raynham Police Chief Donovan, Raynham Police Department Lieutenant David LaPlante, Raynham Police Department Peter Beatrice, and Raynham Police Department Detective Sergeant William Donnelly. The existing site is too small for the current needs and operations, security, and public visitor areas that are currently there now. The proposed new site has an acceptable response times, plenty of room for the new building and site circulation, and secure parking and storage areas. A building on the new site eliminates significant costs that a phased construction and temporary facilities would impose. The land is actually a generous donation by residents John Noblin and Frank Campbell, and is currently in the state land swap process. You'll see on the map here the current public safety location is close to the new location at King Philip Street. The new site builds on the existing municipal complex and community resource areas there. The original building was built in 1957 and originally designed as a town hall and DPW garage, with additions constructed in the 1990s. The size and design fell well short of operational needs now. The repurposed municipal building is well beyond its serviceable life. It falls short of current operational, energy, life safety, structural, seismic, and HVAC codes. It has significant accessibility shortfalls and ADA noncompliance. It's inefficient and inadequate HVAC systems. The original 1957 structure is clad with a brick veneer, and it's exhibiting water infiltration around the whole building. It uses uninsulated masonry brick structure and has a faux brick vinyl paneling in some areas. The existing lot space is not sufficient for growth. The existing 1957 exterior masonry walls have no insulation between the brick veneer and the CMU backup wall. The existing exterior envelope has outlived its useful lifespan. The Sally Port does not include a gas detection or associated exhaust system. This condition is not code compliant. The apparatus bay does not include a gas detection system interlocked with a general exhaust system. This condition is not compliant with current code requirements. The fire station is provided with natural ventilation via operable windows. There is no source of mechanical ventilation serving the office or dorm areas. 2 of the 4 roof-mounted air handling units above the police station areas do not have dedicated outdoor air intake hoods and therefore are recirculating type, intended for space heating, cooling, or both. As seen here in the pictures, these are the existing facility public accommodations. You'll see in the top left picture, there's no handicap access from the PD lot. Patrons and the public must use this grass pathway. The 2 pictures below, left and center, are of the PD vestibule, very small, no real area to separate the public from the PD. On the right-hand side, you'll see there's virtually no public space within the FD vestibule. The vestibule entrances do not meet current handicap codes. There is no public meeting spaces and no public bathrooms. In terms of the existing facilities of the fire department, there's no hot and cold zone separations in the building, and we refer to these hot and cold zone separations in terms of new fire station construction, meaning trying to keep contaminants out of the safe zones of the station. We call the hot zones areas that you could have cancer-causing contaminants coming back from a call. On your duty gear, you want to keep that separate from any of the clean zones of the station. There's none of that going on in the station at this time. There's inadequate ventilation in the firefighter bunk room, inadequate gender facilities and locker and staff support areas, inadequate storage, no training opportunities. Turnout gear is stored in the apparatus bay without dedicated ventilation or UV protection. The turnout gear, when it is sought out by the sun, it does break down, and again, it off-gases when it comes back from a call. Bathrooms are not accessible and do not meet accessible codes. The existing apparatus area contains 4 bays. 2 are limited drive-through due to the size of the overhead doors. All the doors are undersized compared to today's standard of 14 foot wide by 14 foot tall. The average height from the concrete slab to the bottom of the roof joist is 14 feet. Preferred height for a new fire station would be 18 feet clear minimum. The SCBA rooms, or self-containing breathing apparatus rooms, serve at least 7 functions, including locations of the emergency electrical service from the generator and oxygen tank storage, with no provisions for cleaning masks. The personal hydration supplies and equipment should have their own hygienic area on a separate room. Right now, these are all being housed together. As for the existing facilities of the police department side, again, it is insufficient, inadequate, and inefficient for policing operations. The Sallyport is of inadequate size. It has a lack of security, no exterior lot separation from the public to the PD secure side, no locker rooms, not designated as a police station. It lacks essential safety and security components and systems. There are existing leaks. There are safety hazards for the public and staff. Rooms are overcrowded, forced to meet needs, and there's no separate rooms for electrical, IT, or E911, and there is no true emergency operations center. In these pictures, quickly, the top left is the file storage area. Top right or middle, that's currently how evidence is being stored, and the two pictures below are storage and attic areas. The three pictures seen here, the first one on the left is currently the IT and communications area, overcrowded and made to do a job that is made to work to do a job that should be in a safe room. The middle room is a typical office. You'll see it's very overcrowded, things strewn everywhere. The picture on the right is actually the women's room/locker room. There's no showers in here. These are women's bathrooms. But the gray area you see on the right, those are actually the women's lockers shoved into that bathroom. So the IT communications equipment is limited with access and insufficient ventilation. It has outdated and unsafe detainee processing and evidence storage lockers. Storage throughout is lacking. The Sallyport is cluttered with maintenance material storage. And again, the female staff areas are insufficient. Our architects, Doran Whittier, who have performed this process and built numerous public safety facilities across Massachusetts, performed a space needs study. The original, or the existing building, I should say, is about 18,000 square feet. They went through and they did a program for this building that put us in the neighborhood of 50,000 square feet for the forces that you have now. And again, that has about 10% growth for the police built into it, as well as 6% growth built into it for the fire department. These are the floor plans. I'm not going to go through each one of these spaces, but just to highlight both the first and floor plan, the focus of these is on personnel safety, both police and fire, and also response time leaving the building. That's the focus of the design of these plans. This is the first floor plan. It has a gross square footage of just over 33,000 square feet. This is the second floor. This houses administration and firefighter dorms. This is just over 16,000 square feet. You'll now see a site layout that was performed. The benefits of this site, it's directly across from the senior center. It has great proximity to the town and recreational fields. It has good response time matched to its current location. Above all, it was free. It was a donation, again, by John Noblin and Frank Campbell. There's no public access to the rear of the facility for safety and security. This is a big detail in the design of police and firefighters. We're showing here currently 118 parking spaces. Here we have a rendering of the front. Another one from the apparatus space side. To quickly give you an update on our schedule, if this is approved and we have a positive result at the ballot, the plan would be to start design development in July and go through the design development phase into construction documents and hopefully bidding this in April or May of 2022 and starting construction in May, June of 22 with a final completion in December of 2023. I won't go through each one of these line items, but this is the same number that is in the warrant article, but our total budget for this project is $30,500,000. Working with the town accountant, who gave us this wording, at an estimated borrowing cost of $30.5 million, the annual residential tax impact per 1,000 value starts at 79 cents in year 1 and declines to 39 cents in year 30. This equates to $326 for the average single-family home in year 1 and declining to $161 in year 30. Thank you.
Brian LaSilva, the Fire Chief for the Raynham Fire Department, and today I want to take you through a tour of our station. The room that we're currently in is the administrative office that houses 3 people, along with the Deputy Chief, who handles most of our fire prevention, and as you can see, the space is limited. This bunk room is where the firefighters spend the night. If we had a female firefighter, we would be unable to make accommodations for her in this current facility. This is the apparatus bay where we keep all our apparatus and our fire gear. The important thing here is health and safety. The gear off gases after a fire event, which puts contaminants in the air and contaminates the rest of the facility. The new fire station would have a separate room for this and a negative pressure ventilation system to take those contaminants and expel them out. As we talked about before, the new building will have 6 bays where this old building has 4. The new station will have bigger garage space and a couple of drive-through bays to eliminate some of the double stacking that we have here. This area here is a outbuilding. It's a back garage where we keep a lot of our extra equipment and a couple of reserve pieces, a tanker, another engine, some of the special operations stuff. This building is a necessity, and in the new plan for the new facility, there's a back building that will be hopefully constructed, and this is where a lot of this particular equipment will be housed there. And lastly, again, to reiterate the need for extra space and an extra outbuilding at the new facility, you can see all of our even more miscellaneous equipment that has to be stored in storage sheds out behind the actual property of the firehouse and the police station.
Hello, James Donovan. I'd like to bring you on a tour of our police facility here in Raynham. It's a building that was built in 1957, originally as a town hall and shared municipal building. Now the police and fire department work from here.
So this is our dispatch area. As you can see here, we answer 911. We run license plates. We answer the officers on the radio. We get messages from other departments. Here is where we take care of the public. If they have any concerns, if they need to talk to an officer, they need to get a tow slip or anything like that, this is where we help them. We have no kitchen area to wash our dishes, so we wash our dishes in the bathroom.
This is also shared space with the fire department. So the police and the fire department use this for training, which is helpful, but when there's actually a training or a meeting going on, it cuts the police department in half. So in order for the police officers to access dispatch or vice versa, they have to go outside the building to get around without interrupting the training or the meeting. The Raynham Police Department answered 18,000 calls for service, and 911 answered over 5,500 calls last year. This is our facility.
Welcome. Planning and Construction Committee presentation for a new combined police and fire public safety building. This presentation.
Thank you very much for your patience through that. As you can see, our existing facility is in tough shape. It's ready for we're ready for a new building. So I'm here to answer any questions or direct your questions to whoever can answer them properly. I have the full committee here tonight, along with Rick and Taylor from Pomeroy Associates. So if there's anything you need answered, we'll do the best we can to answer your questions. Thank you.
Any questions on Article 34? Mr. Pacheco?
Thank you. I'll be very brief. No questions, but I just wanted to stand before all of you and offer my unequivocal support for this project. It's been something as a town we've been working on for approximately the last 3 years, and I can assure you that the video and the pictures do not do the justice for the condition the building is in. If you have not been in that building, I would suggest you go and take a look and get a tour for it, because I can tell you I'm pretty confident nobody in this room would want to work in that building, and it's a credit to both departments for having worked in that building for 64 years. So I would urge you to vote in the affirmative on this. Thank you.
Thank you. Further questions? Mr. DuPont. I can't really hear you.
Just a question not to speak on the article.
I'm sorry?
I don't want to speak on the article. I want
Yeah. Questions or comments?
I don't know. I'm a layman here, and I've looked at the report and spent a lot of time on it, but I got to ask this. I don't know if everybody else knows the answer. If you do, say it in unison, but I think somebody in uniform or somebody from the building inspector could tell us what a sally port is.
Good evening. Richard Pomeroy from Pomeroy Associates, and very good question. Sally port is used in the police department, and it's a process, the first point of processing detainee or a prisoner. So when the vehicle comes in with the detainee or prisoner, the vehicle is driven into the Sally port, and then the prisoner begins its processing. The importance of a Sally port is that it has to be a clean area with virtually nothing there that a prisoner can grab or use in any way to sort of fend off the beginning of the processing. And this Sally port wasn't designed as a Sally port in the beginning, and it's overly small now, and it's a dangerous situation. So it puts our police officers in danger. It also puts the detainee in danger. So it's an area that is very important for the livelihood of the facility.
Further questions, comments? Mr. Betancourt, please. You've built a building or two. You built this one, didn't you?
I was part of a team.
Part of a team?
It's always part of a team.
You forgot air conditioning, Joe.
For general, well, we tried to, but you wouldn't vote the money. I just want to make a comment. They put together a very good team. Mr. Pomeroy is somebody that I know of, I've dealt with and worked with. The whole committee were part of our permanent building committee, Mr. Noblin and Mr. Campbell and Dan Andre. And basically, this is an idea whose time has come. It's overdue. Absolutely overdue. This should be a no-brainer. $30 million. You're sitting in a $24 million school. But that was 20 years ago. They did a great job. They've gone through the detail. The need was there 20 years ago. 20 years ago. The fire department had deficient staffing. So I would recommend very highly voting for this and then sitting down and voting for the increased staffing that's necessary to bring the fire department up to where it should be. This is not a twofer. The vote for this is the physical plan. The Finance Committee is going to be faced with the request for more bodies. That's the funding of an adequate staff to house that new building. Just be prepared. I'm 1,000% in favor of both the building and the staffing. The fire department in particular, only, in my opinion, not degrading the police department, but the fire department has done such a job over the years, we forgot to say thank you. This is our way to say thank you to them and to the police department for the good job it does for us.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt. Further comments, Mr. McNally. Name and address, please, for the record.
Hi, my name's Daniel McNally, 269 North Main Street. I am also on the Finance Committee. Just one thing that I'm completely in support of, and I think everyone should vote for this new fire and police department. It's desperately needed in this town. I do have one question, though. How confident is the committee that put this together in the $30 million number and not having come back to the town in, halfway through the project that you need another $10 million or something? Thank you.
As a group, the entire committee, as well as the project architect in our firm, spent many months going through the plans, going through budgets. We did 3 rounds of estimating, and each time was followed up with efficiency measures to reduce square footage, to reduce cost, and to save as much money as possible. We're also looking at doing some carving out some of the site work into the possibility of separate proposals or separate contracts to avoid or to limit the amount of profit and overhead that the general contractor would get for the project. So we're looking at all cost-saving measures possible. We've also built in escalation to the point of construction in our estimating. So we feel very confident with the number. We've been doing this as well as Dora and Whittier has been doing this for a long time, and we have a very impressive and track record that we're proud of with regards to bringing in projects on budget. So we feel very confident with where we are right now. Thank you.
Thank you, Rick. Chief King, is that you, sir?
I almost had a police station once before. Peter King, 85 Oak Street. I'm 100% in favor of this. It's been 20 years ago, we spent $250,000 on plans, and they put on weights up in the ceiling. I think this time has come. We really need the space, and I look forward to affirmative vote on this article.
Thank you, Chief. Further comments, questions on Article 34? Mr. DuPont.
I started out a skeptic and a critic of this project. I thought this was a good plan, but it wasn't the best plan. And I took the time and I looked through the minutes of the meetings, and I also looked into the record of Pomeroy Associates of the previous track record on projects. It's very good. Now, the big thing to me, the story used to be told that a student sitting in a public classroom was a lot like somebody in the space shuttle. They were riding in something built by the low bidder. Now, that was funny until the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster happened. This is public safety. And that was the question that I asked. I went to a committee meeting and I asked it. I later discussed it with the fire chief. I discussed it with members of the police department about the issue of public safety. If you want to quibble about money, then we really aren't on the same page here. And what I saw here, and the first question I had was, will this impact plus or minus, positive or negative, emergency response? And the answer, unequivocally, from the fire department in particular, was they have looked at that. They have analyzed the response time from the new location versus the current location and find it sufficient for their purposes and to meet what they professionally, as public safety people, feel this town needs and what they need to do the job. So tonight, you can sleep well. Now, So the response time of the new facility was the paramount issue to me, and they assured me that they have looked at that. They've thought about it, and it's good. The other things to consider are this now gets a public safety facility out of a neighborhood. Town Hall was 53 Orchard Street, where the police station is. I lived at 54 Orchard Street for the first 30 years of my life, right across the street. The town was smaller then. The police department was smaller. The fire department was smaller. We're back to that selectman article again. This meets not just the current needs, and Chief Donovan at the meeting that I attended made it very clear. This isn't just something that we're buying like a pair of shoes that fits today. This is something that can grow and expand as the town continues to grow and expand and keep us all safe. And the big thing about it, the thing that you really need to hear, is that there are two separate departments with two separate jobs, but they have one mission, public safety. And what the chiefs have assured me, and I say this to you on behalf of someone who's like you, a layman, I'm not public safety, that they will have an integrated public safety response. That what one department does, the other department will be doing in conjunction with them. A motor vehicle accident, police, life-saving, traffic issues, all of those things will be done as part of one mission by two very well-trained, very well-led professional departments of public safety. Now that I know what a sally port is, I know I should avoid it, but I hope you will support this article. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dupont. Further questions or comments on Article 34? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 34, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 34 passes. Article 35, to see if the town will vote to amend Article 45 of the 2003 annual town meeting by adding the highlighted language. And essentially, I'm not going to read this, folks, but the old article established an appointment advisory committee to be appointed by the moderator of 3 to 7 members, a case-by-case basis. All this does is it gives the Board of Selectmen, it adds, starting with the word alternatively at the bottom, this adds the ability for the Board of Selectmen at their sole discretion to retain professional services of a recruitment form to perform the search and recommendation function, thereby relieving the Appointment Advisory Committee of its responsibility for a specific appointment. Did we motion this? No. Motion has been made and seconded to accept Article 35. I will say, as probably one of the affected folks of this article, I wholeheartedly support this in giving the Board of Selectmen the ability to go for outside services for recruitment purposes. Further discussion, any discussion on Article 35? Seeing none, all those in favor of Article 35, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, no. Article 35 passes. And just before we motion to dissolve, I have two requests of everybody before you get up and start to leave and try to catch the last 10 minutes of the Bruins game. Your clickers, very, very important that we get them back. There will be somebody at each door, hopefully, collecting the clickers. If you prefer, you can just put it face down on your chair, and we'll come around and get it from you. And secondly, for those that are able and willing, and you are sitting in a plastic folding chair, if you would perhaps take it and fold it up and lean it against these bleachers over here, that would be most helpful to our crew breaking it down tonight. And if any of you younger folks want to stick around and help fold up chairs, that would be appreciated too. So I need a motion. Motion has been made and seconded to dissolve the annual town meeting. All those in favor, please say aye. Opposed, no. Annual town meeting is dissolved. Thank you, folks.